Chapter 1371. As the voice rang out, a skinny old man covered in a black cloak suddenly appeared in the hall like a ghost. Xiao Gongshu's expression did not change when he saw this. He said indifferently, "The Blood Shadow Pavilion really is unpredictable. You guys are everywhere." Of course. After all, we're an assassin organization. The black-robed old man snickered. The Blood Shadow Pavilion was a powerful assassin organization in the South Horizon region. Although it was not an overlord-level organization, it was still extremely powerful. In reality, there were many other overlord-level organizations in the South Horizon region apart from the 3 sects, 4 pavilions, and 5 clans. There were also many other organizations with extremely powerful sections. For example, the Artifacts sect and the Blood Shadow Pavilion. Xiao Gongshu took a deep breath and said, "Back then, I secretly forged a god weapon for the Blood Shadow Pavilion. You owe me a favor. Now you have a chance to pay me back." The black-robed old man chuckled like a crow when he heard that. "Let me think. Don't tell me you want us to assassinate Yiguchen?" Xiao Gongshu snorted coldly when he heard that. "Since you understand, I don't need to say anything more." However, the black-robed old man became slightly troubled. "Well, I'm afraid it'll be a little troublesome." What do you mean?" Xiao Gongshu's eyes immediately sharpened. The only thought in his mind was to get rid of Yiguchen. This was because Yiguchen had single-handedly ruined his entire plan. However, Xiao Gongshu clearly could not do it himself. It just so happened that the Blood Shadow Pavilion owed him a favor, so he could use it now. However, the person in charge of the Blood Shadow Pavilion was actually beating around the bush and saying something like that. Xiao Gongshu's face darkened even more. The black-robed old man gently smiled when he saw this. "Master Xiao, don't worry. You know that killing Yiguchen is nothing, but there are too many implications. He was originally Jiankui from the Sword Dynasty. Now, the Sword Dynasty has become a saint ruler with the leader of the Sword Alliance, Ao Shenzhou, becoming a peak organization only second to the overlord-level organizations. And that Yukuin from the Holy Emperor realm seems to be related to Yiguchen as well. Not to mention that Yiguchen is now the junior sect master of Divine Artifact sect. That's quite a high status. Think about it. If our Blood Shadow Pavilion kills Yiguchen, how much trouble will it cause?" The black-robed elder's words caused Xiao Gongshu's already gloomy face to sink even further. However, he couldn't refute it because it was indeed the truth. Yiguchen was no longer the loner he had been in the Infinite Plains. The force behind him could not be underestimated. However, Xiao Gongshu still noticed that the black-robed old man's eyes flashed with a dark light. He came to a sudden realization and said in an indifferent tone, "Your Blood Shadow Tower is a profit-driven organization. When you're angry, you even dare to assassinate people from overlord forces. Tell me, what do you want?" Xiao Gongshu could tell at a glance that the black-robed old man wasn't completely rejecting him. A favor was not enough for Blood Shadow Pavilion to act. Master Xiao, you are indeed wise. In fact, the conditions are very simple. They couldn't be any simpler for you, the black-robed old man said with a smile. "Tell me," Xiao Gongshu said. "Master Xiao, I'm afraid it's very difficult for you to stay in Divine Artifact sect now," the black-robed old man said meaningfully. "What do you mean?" Xiao Gongshu frowned. However, the black-robed old man was telling the truth. After his scheme had been exposed, it was indeed difficult for him to have a place in Divine Artifact sect. He might even be expelled directly. It's very simple. The Blood Shadow Pavilion welcomes Master Xiao very much, the black-robed old man said with a smile. Now Xiao Gongshu completely understood. The Blood Shadow Pavilion wanted to rope him in. "Master Xiao, if you join us, you can directly become the high and mighty Deputy Pavilion Lord. As for Yiguchen, we'll also take care of him for you," the black-robed old man said. Xiao Gongshu's expression changed, but he agreed in the end. "Alright, that's fine. However, how are you going to assassinate Yiguchen?" Xiao Gongshu asked. "It's very simple. When Sky Burial Island opens, a group of prodigies from the Blood Shadow Pavilion will also enter. At that time, assassinating Yiguchen will be a piece of cake. Moreover, because it will be within Sky Burial Island, the faction behind him will not be able to find out, the black-robed old man said. Alright, as long as you can kill Yiguchen, why not let me join the Blood Shadow Pavilion? Xiao Gongshu made his decision. As expected of Master Xiao. Straightforward. The black-robed old man said with a smile. Yiguchen, only your death can dispel the hatred in my heart. Xiao Gongshu muttered to himself. On the other side, Yiguchen did not know that an assassination plan had already begun. Yiguchen did not stay in Divine Artifact Sect for long before he returned to Sword Dynasty with the Divine Eagle and Blackie. As for Duan Tianfeng, he stayed in Divine Artifact Sect and became a great elder. Unsurprisingly, what happened in the Heavenly Craftsmanship City spread out in all directions in just a few days. Have you heard about what happened in Heavenly Craftsmanship City recently? Of course I have. The Yiguchen is too unexpected. Not only is he strong, but he also has such great strength in the way of forging. Yes. Nangong Jueyun is known as the young master of divine weapons. He specializes in forging. I did not expect that he would lose to Yiguchen. Yiguchen is not only the Jinkue of Sword Dynasty now. He is also the future master of Divine Artifact Sect. Sword Dynasty and Divine Artifact Sect are two major forces. Although they are not dominating forces, they are still top forces. Plus, there is that Luo Kun in Holy Emperor World. Yiguchen is not someone the Starry Sword Pavilion can mess with as they wish. That is not necessarily true. We still have to see the Battle of Sky Burial Island. Di Haotian of Divine Sword Sect will not let Yiguchen go. We will have a good show by then. Yiguchen's deeds were discussed everywhere in Nantian region. As for Yiguchen, he had already returned to the Sword Dynasty to make the final preparations. 2 months passed by very quickly. Yiguchen spent some time in Divine Artifact Sect. Therefore, not long after he returned to Sword Dynasty to cultivate in seclusion, the Battle of Sky Burial Island was approaching. This battle was not like the one in Holy Emperor World. The Battle of Holy Emperor World could be regarded as an internal struggle. The most excellent talents of Nantian region had to be selected. The Battle of Sky Burial Island was a battle between Nantian region and the Dark World. At that time, the talents of Nantian region would have to fight against the talents of the Dark World. Due to the special environment, the Dark World was full of fighting and killing. Therefore, the talents of the Dark World had more combat experience and skills than the talents of Nantian region who lived like princes. It was also rumored that all the elites of the Dark World would participate in the Battle of Sky Burial Island. The small giants of the Dark World would appear one after another to hunt down the top talents of Nantian region. An ultimate battle was coming. Chapter 1372. The entire Nantian region was in an uproar because of what happened on Sky Burial Island. On the Starry Sword Pavilion side, the atmosphere was a little gloomy. The Battle of the Sacred Emperor World was like a nightmare for the Starry Sword Pavilion. The 4 young Star Lords and Gu Xiaoyang, a total of 5 top geniuses, had all died at the hands of Yiguchen. Song Yuyao and Zhou Heng had also died. Almost all of the famous 7 Big Dipper disciples of the Starry Sword Pavilion had died at the hands of Yiguchen. It was definitely a big blow to the Starry Sword Pavilion. What was more infuriating was that the Starry Sword Pavilion was unable to kill Yiguchen for the time being. They could only pursue the matter after the battle on Sky Burial Island. This made the elders of the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion and the ordinary disciples feel aggrieved. Just as the Starry Sword Pavilion was shrouded in a gloomy cloud. In the depths of the Starry Sword Pavilion, a mountain suddenly burst out with dazzling purple brilliance. Vaguely, everyone seemed to see a purple Emperor star slowly flickering in the sky. That's the Ziwei Emperor star. Could it be? Some elders of the Starry Sword Pavilion couldn't help but exclaim. As for the ordinary disciples, they all had puzzled looks on their faces. They only knew about the 7 Big Dipper disciples, but they didn't know that the Starry Sword Pavilion actually had other geniuses. At the moment when everyone's gazes were focused on the mountain peak, a voice suddenly rang out. Purple clouds spread out as if forming a purple cloud bridge. A beautiful figure stepped on the cloud bridge and slowly walked out. It was a tall and slender woman, dressed in a purple dress that wrapped around her slender and delicate body. Her long purple hair shone like a mirror, draping straight down like silk. Her face was white and exquisite. Her eyes were like stars, filled with purple light. 2 purple jade earrings hung on her snow-white earlobes, adding a touch of nobility and elegance to the woman. Many disciples of the Starry Sword Pavilion were dumbfounded when they saw the beautiful woman in the purple dress. But what made them even more shocked was that the woman in the purple dress faintly emitted an aura that had reached the 9th level of the divine dwelling realm. She was only 1 step away from the venerables of the Heaven Palace. This shocked all the disciples of the Starry Sword Pavilion. What's going on? Since when did our Starry Universe Sword Pavilion have such a young genius? That's right. At such a young age, his cultivation has already reached the peak of the 9th layer of the divine dwelling realm. Is he comparable to the heaven prides of the 4 emperors? Many disciples of the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion were speechless. On the other hand, the elders of the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion weren't too surprised, as they already knew that the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion had 2 supreme talents: the Son of 7 Stars and the Emperor's Star Maiden. The purple-haired woman in front of him was the Purple Star Maiden, Jiang Ziwei. I didn't expect that the 7 Great Bears would all be defeated by one person. That person must be very unhappy, right? Jiang Ziwei thought to herself. The one she was referring to was none other than the Son of 7 Stars. The 7 Great Bears were originally just resources for the Sons of 7 Stars. But now, their resources had been destroyed by Yiguchen, and the Sons of 7 Stars would have to delay for a while before they could be born. But now, because the Burial Sky Island was about to open, and the 7 Great Bears were all wiped out, the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion had no heaven prides to hold the fort, so they could only summon the Purple Star Maiden. I'm curious about Yiguchen. What kind of person is he? Jiang Ziwei's eyes were filled with purple light, flickering slightly. But unfortunately, the Star Lord and the others have instructed me to find out the whereabouts of the God Devourer sword in the Burial Sky Island, and then kill Yiguchen. Jiang Ziwei shook her head slightly, her delicate face looking very calm. It seemed that it wasn't too difficult for her to deal with Yiguchen. With the Purple Star Maiden's birth, our Starry Universe Sword Pavilion will be able to turn the tide and fight again. Many elders of the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion were excited. In the Heavenly God Sword sect, a handsome young man in white robes walked towards a forbidden area with a formation. This young man was Chu Xuanjun. After stepping into the forbidden area, he looked around and saw a young man with a perfect temperament sitting cross-legged on a futon. Inside the formation, many strange fires of heaven and earth were burning the human sovereign sword. The golden crystals on the surface of the human sovereign sword had melted a lot. The young man was wearing a loose white robe, and his skin was as clear as jade, shining brightly. His long golden hair was extremely dazzling, and his silver eyes were as deep as the moon. He was handsome, and his temperament was natural, as if he was the most perfect work of God, not a bit more, not a bit less. He had an otherworldly and noble temperament, and he didn't look like a mortal. This was the perfect temperament that only a 10th grade supreme talent could have. Who else could this young man be but Di Haoyan? Greetings, senior brother Haoyan. I'm Chu Xuanjun. Chu Xuanjun cupped his hands slightly. Is the sacred imperial world over? Di Haoyan asked. He had been cultivating in seclusion in the forbidden area, and he didn't want anyone to disturb him, so he didn't know much about what was going on outside. Chu Xuanjun looked a little ashamed and said, I'm sorry to disappoint you, senior brother Haoyan. I didn't get the best in the sacred imperial world. Oh, except for a few people like Huang Qianqiu and Jun Xiaoyao, you should be able to rank at the top, Di Haoyan said. I didn't expect that Jian Kuei from the Sword Dynasty to be Yiguchen. He hit it too well. A cold light flashed in Chu Xuanjun's eyes. Just as Chu Xuanjun finished speaking, Di Haoyan's eyes suddenly narrowed, and an invisible aura spread out, making Chu Xuanjun and the other supreme talents feel a little suffocated. He is indeed a venerable of the heavenly palace. Chu Xuanjun was shocked. You mean Yiguchen? Di Haoyan asked. Yi Guchen was still fresh in Di Haoyan's memory. After all, Yi Guchen was the only one who had severely injured him among his peers. Before this, almost no other supreme talent of the same generation could seriously injure Di Haoyan. That was why he remembered it so clearly. Yes, this is what happened. Following that, Chu Xuanzhen told Di Haoyan everything that had happened in the Sacred Emperor realm in detail. After listening, Di Haoyan said calmly, I didn't expect that the ant from back then to have grown to this level. Di Haoyan's expression was still calm, like a god. In his opinion, Yi Guchen was able to severely injure him not because of Yi Guchen's own strength. Instead, it was because Yi Guchen had taken the 9 Deaths No Regrets elixir, and then somehow borrowed a trace of the Celestial Emperor Sword's power to injure him. In short, Yi Guchen did not rely on his own strength, but on external objects. Therefore, Di Haoyan thought that Yi Guchen was just an ant. Senior brother Haoyan, you don't have to do anything. I can kill Yi Guchen, Chu Xuanzhen said confidently. He was also a supreme talent. Previously, when he was in the Sacred Imperial Realm, he did not have the chance to fight with Yi Guchen. I will also go to the Burial Island this time. If I am too lazy to do anything, then you can kill him. Di Haoyan waved his hand and said casually. Yes. Chu Xuanzhen said while holding his fists together. Yi Guchen, this time, can you borrow the power of the 9 Deaths No Regrets elixir and the Celestial Emperor Sword? If I bring the human ruler's sword, I wonder what kind of expression you will show. Di Haoyan's lips curled into a faint smile. This time, he would bring the human ruler's sword. This was because Di Haoyan had read many ancient books. It was very likely that there was something he wanted on Burial Sky Island. The Earth Ruler's Sword. Chapter 1373. 2 months had passed since the end of the battle in the Sacred Imperial Realm. These 2 months were supposed to be a peaceful period of preparation for war. However, there was one thing that ignited public opinion in the entire Nantian region. Yi Guchen had defeated the Divine Weapon Prince, Nangong Ju Yun, in the art of smithing and became the young sect leader of the Divine Weapon sect. When everyone heard about this, their first reaction was to be astonished. That's right, astonishment. Yi Guchen's name was naturally well known in the Nantian region, but he was more famous in the art of swordsmanship and martial arts. As for the art of forging, not many people knew about it. Even though some people knew that Yi Guchen was the disciple of the South Forging Saint, Forge Tianfeng, they did not think that his smithing skills were that great. However, Yi Guchen's performance in the selection of the young master could be said to be amazing. Even Nangong Ju Yun, who specialized in forging, was defeated by Yi Guchen. TSK, Yi Guchen is really a monster. Did he start cultivating in his mother's womb? But to be honest, although Yi Guchen's performance was amazing, he might not be able to survive the Burial Island. That's right. Even though he's the sword champion of the Sword Dynasty and the young master of the Divine Artifact sect, he's still a little weak compared to the Celestial God Sword sect, Starry Sword Pavilion, Dongfang clan, and other forces. The entire Nantian region was talking about Yi Guchen. At this moment, Yi Guchen himself was in the Sword Dynasty, making the final preparations. In the sky, several large ships were floating in the void. Yi Guchen and the other swordsmen of the Sword Dynasty were standing among them. Zhao Xiaodi, the princess of the War God Dynasty, was also standing beside Yi Guchen. As for Jun Xiaoyao, Zhao Shinkong, and the others, they had already returned to their respective forces to rest and prepare for the Burial Island. As for Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and the others, they would follow Yi Guchen to Sky Burial Island. However, they would not participate in the Battle of Sky Burial Island. Yan Wushuang and the others were self-aware. The outside world knew that they had a close relationship with Yi Guchen. If they participated in Sky Burial Island and were not strong enough, not only would they be in danger, but they would also implicate Yi Guchen. Because of that, Yan Wushuang and the others would only follow him and not enter Sky Burial Island. In addition, the proud Divine Continent, Confuzi, and Wu Hongyan were also present. In the Sword Dynasty, only Leng Qianhen and the other saints were left behind. Yi Guchen, I will go with you this time. No matter what, I will do my best to protect you. The proud divine continent spoke, its tone resolute. Many thanks to senior proud divine continent. Yi Guchen slightly cupped his hands. As for the Yukuan, Bei Miao, the North Nether King, it had already left the Sword Dynasty a month ago. No one knew where it had gone. However, Yi Guchen believed that it must have been secretly observing him. Sky Burial Island, this day has finally come. Yi Guchen stood on the deck of the ship with his hands behind his back. His black hair fluttered in the wind. Although he did not deliberately reveal his aura, there seemed to be sword intent and battle intent rising in the void. He hadn't forgotten what had happened at the infinite desolate plains until now. It was still vivid in his mind. Su Jianshi had sacrificed herself in front of him and was sealed in the human sovereign sword. Di Haotian had used a high and mighty tone to judge him like a god. Now, Yi Guchen believed that even without the power of the Nine Deaths regretless pill and the Celestial Emperor sword, he could fight Di Haotian with his own strength. Not to mention he still had his strongest trump card. Duga begging demons. Just as Yi Guchen and the people of the Sword Dynasty were about to set off for Sky Burial Island, on the side of the Mola Dynasty, a black ship rose into the sky. Dugu begging demons and Princess Luoho stood on the deck. He wore a black robe and had 3,000 feet of white hair. His dark golden right eye was deep and charming. His handsome and charming face was expressionless, and his aura was cold and evil. Beside him, Princess Luoho looked at Dugu begging demons and wanted to say something. Begging demons, what is the relationship between you and Yi Guchen? Princess Luoho bit her red lips and asked. Because Dugu begging demons had treated Yi Guchen very strangely in the Sacred Emperor realm. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask, Dugu begging demons said indifferently. Yes. Princess Luoho lowered her head. She had a cold and domineering personality, but in front of the even colder and more domineering Dugu begging demons, she could only bow her head. Di Haotian, let's settle all our grudges in the Sacred Emperor realm. Dugu begging demons whispered in his heart. Yi Guchen's grudge was his grudge. The entire Nantian region was stirred because of the incident on Zhangtian Island. The sword pavilions all set off. On the Luo Fu sword pavilion side, Jun Xiaoyao also set off. His white sleeves fluttered in the wind like a banished immortal. He was elegant and handsome. The final battle on Zhangtian Island. I think Brother Yi and Di Haotian will have a life and death battle. I hope he can be safe, Jun Xiaoyao murmured. He did not say that he hoped Yi Guchen could defeat Di Haotian, because that would be too difficult. Di Haotian's reputation was not built in a day or two. It was a reputation that had been accumulated over a long time. He and Gu Xiaoyang were definitely not on the same level. On the Misty Sword Pavilion's side, Yi Songyue also set off. Her feelings toward Yi Guchen were complicated. But she was sure that she did not want to see Yi Guchen fall in the hands of Di Haotian. On the Imperial Heaven Sword Pavilion's side, Huang Qianqiu also came out of seclusion. As one of the 4 emperors, his cultivation had improved again after the Sacred Emperor realm. He had reached the peak of the 9th level of the Divine Dwelling realm, and was only a step away from the Venerable of the Celestial Palace. This trip to Zhangtian Island will be an opportunity for me to break through to the Venerable realm. And Yi Guchen, no matter what, he will not be able to walk out of Zhangtian Island alive, Huang Qianqiu whispered. Because there were too many people who wanted to kill Yi Guchen on Zhangtian Island. Di Haotian, Chu Xuanzhen, and Huang Qianqiu. Any one of them was an absolutely strong opponent. On the Starry Sword Pavilion side, the Ziwei Star Maiden, Jiang Ziwei, boarded a flying boat and flew across the sky. Yi Guchen, I'm really curious what kind of person he will be. Not only the sword pavilions, but the 3 major sects also took action. On the Heavenly God Sword sect's side, a golden dragon boat rose into the sky. It was dazzling and magnificent. Countless disciples of the Heavenly God Sword sect looked up, their faces full of admiration and respect. Its senior brother Haotian, he finally came out of seclusion. Who can stop senior brother Haotian when he comes out of seclusion? Whether it's the Nantian region or the Dark World, there are probably not many Heaven Prides who can compete with senior brother Di Haotian. Yes, even Yi Guchen, who has been in the limelight recently, can only die in front of senior brother Di Haotian. Yes, a person who relied on external objects to hurt senior brother Haotian. What qualifications does he have to be called a heaven pride? The disciples of the heavenly god sword sect all admired Di Haotian. In their view, Yiguchen only relied on external objects to luckily injure Di Haotian. If it was a real battle, Yiguchen would definitely not be Di Haotian's opponent. Everyone in the heavenly god sword sect thought so. Chapter 1374. On the battle god saber sect's side, Dao Wuming and Gu Zun were also prepared. Especially Gu Zun. His hair was unkempt and his beard was unkempt, but no one in the battle god saber sect dared to underestimate him. Although the battle between prodigies wasn't over yet, Gu Zun was already on the battle god saber sect's side. I heard that Gu Zun has a grudge with Yiguchen in the past. I heard that too. The two seem to have engaged in a sword and saber duel. Although Yiguchen won in the end, it was a Pyrrhic victory. Gu Zun is really unique to be able to push Yiguchen to that extent. Many battle god saber sect disciples whispered to each other, "Gu Zun, you don't have to do this. Even if you don't do anything, Yiguchen won't be able to survive Sky Burial Island," Dao Wuming said, shaking his head. Gu Zun's expression didn't change as he said in a hoarse voice, "You're wrong. Killing Yiguchen isn't my goal. Ending things with him and having a sword and saber duel is my goal," said Gu Zun. If he only wanted Yiguchen dead, he could have just watched Di Haotian, Chu Xuanzhen, Huang Qianqiu, and the others kill Yiguchen. But if he didn't have a sword and saber duel with Yiguchen, his obsession would never be removed. "Yiguchen, I'll end things on Sky Burial Island, even if it's for him," Gu Zun murmured. The him he was referring to was his former master, Yu Bufan. Unfortunately, he couldn't say that name again. The demonic destroyer sect. In a continuous stretch of pitch-black mountain range. Suddenly, a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky. 10 huge pitch-black demonic figures stood tall in the sky. Each of them was like the king of hell, emitting a bone-chilling aura that made one's heart palpitate. That phenomenon, is it Holy Yama? Is he finally coming out of seclusion? This phenomenon attracted the attention of many elders and disciples of the demonic extermination sect. On top of a mountain, one tall and slim figure stood tall and straight. The black dress outlined her devilish figure. Her beautiful face was covered with a black veil, only revealing a pair of watery eyes. "Is the Yama King finally coming out?" One mumbled to herself. Her eyes were filled with seriousness. The Holy Yama was simply too powerful. He was one of the 4 emperors, Hades, and was on par with Huang Qianqiu. Boom. Just as Wana was thinking about this, a loud explosion came from the mountains not far away. Then, a silhouette broke out and stood in the sky. It was a young man in a pitch-black robe with dark golden patterns on the edges of his sleeves. His appearance was handsome, but his skin was abnormally pale, without the slightest trace of blood. His eyes were completely devoid of white and filled with darkness, just like the eyes of a devil. 10 pitch-black Yamakings circled around him. That was his innate talent phenomenon, the 10 kings of hell. The Holy Yama himself was like the ruler of the 10 kings of hell. He looked around and saw one. Immediately, his body moved and turned into a wisp of black smoke. The next moment, he appeared in front of one. "Well, I didn't expect you to be here waiting for me to come out." The Holy Yama smiled wickedly. His pitch-black eyes scanned Wana's graceful body up and down. He didn't hide it at all. Wana frowned, and a tinge of annoyance appeared in her beautiful eyes. Although she had the title of demoness and looked unrestrained, she was actually very protective of her body. She hadn't even let other men touch her jade-like hands. The Holy Yama had always been lusting after her, and he didn't hide it. This was why Wana was disgusted. "You think too much. I just want to see how much you've improved. It seems that you still haven't broken through to the Celestial Palace Honorable Realm," Wana said, pursing her lips. "Haha, it's not that easy to break through to the Celestial Palace Honorable Realm. However, I have the chance to do so on Sky Burial Island." The Holy Yama didn't mind. What he needed to do now was to break through to the Celestial Palace Honorable Realm on Sky Burial Island. Then he would think of a way to become the young sect master of the demonic sect. This way, even if Wan's status wasn't low, he could take it as he wished. Wan obviously knew what the Holy Yama was thinking. That was why she wanted to support Duguchiomo. The first reason why Wan wanted to support Duguchiomo was because Duguchiomo had the Demon King descending to the ninth heaven vision. He could cultivate the Demonic Heart Sutra, the core cultivation technique of the demonic sect. The second reason was naturally to support Duguchiomo to become the young sect master of the demonic sect. This would make the Holy Yama's plan fail. The Holy Yama glanced at Wan. He seemed to have thought of something and said, "Wan, I heard that you found a martial artist called Duguchiomo outside. He has the legendary Demon King descending to the ninth heaven vision?" Wan wasn't surprised by the Holy Yama's words. Although he was cultivating in seclusion, many disciples in the sect were loyal to him. Therefore, it was easy for him to find out about Duguchiomo. That's right. After the Battle of the Geniuses, Duguchiomo will probably join the demonic sect, Wan said directly. With Duguchiomo's strength and talent, he would definitely be recruited by the demonic extermination sect if nothing unexpected happened. Humph, what if I don't let him walk out of Sky Burial Island? The Holy Yama said coldly. What the Holy Yama wanted was the young sect master of the demonic sect. Duguchiomo was clearly a huge threat. He's not as weak as you think. It's not that easy for you to kill him, Wan said coldly. Duguchiomo's strength had begun to show in the Holy Emperor world. He was someone who could even fight against Huang Qianqiu. The Holy Yama was as famous as Huang Qianqiu. Therefore, it wouldn't be that easy for him to kill Duguchiomo. Is that so? Let's wait and see. The Holy Yama smiled coldly. As time passed, the people from the three sects and the four-sword pavilions set off. The four overlord families, Dongfang, Nangong, Shimin, and Baiming, were also preparing to set off. Originally, there should be 5 families including the Su family. However, the Su family had been destroyed, so there were only 4 of them left. The geniuses of the 4 overlord families hadn't participated in the battle of the Holy Emperor world. Therefore, they naturally had to participate in the battle of Sky Burial Island. Nangong Ju-yun also set off from the Nangong family. There was a cold look in his eyes. Nangong Ju-yun didn't only know how to forge. He cultivated both the martial way and craftsmanship way. Yiguchen, I will take revenge for my failure in forging. Nangong Ju-yun said coldly in his heart. On the other hand, the Dongfang family, as the leader of the 4 families, had the most extravagant display. A group of young geniuses and family members of the Dongfang family stood on a ship. Their faces were filled with leisurely calmness. Among them, there was a girl in purple. If Yiguchen was here, he would definitely recognize her. It was Dongfang Ziyun. Chapter 1375. As the leader of the 4 overlord families, the Dongfang family naturally had a strong foundation. The saying, "the sun rises from the east," wasn't just for show. At this moment, Dongfang Ziyun was talking to a handsome young man on the Dongfang family ship. This young man was dressed in a luxurious golden robe. His face was fair and handsome. What caught people's attention was his eyes. They were also golden, like 2 small suns. He seemed to have walked out of the sun, and his radiance was dazzling. The young people of the Dongfang family seemed to regard him as their leader. The young man with golden eyes was the top genius of the Dongfang family, one of the 10 great young masters, young master Tong Tian, Dongfang Guangyao. It was said that when he was born, there was a sun in his dantian, and he had the physique of light. He was extremely talented. He cultivated and became one of the 10 great young masters, young master Tong Tian. He was also a veteran young master like Chu Xuanzhen and Jun Xiaoyao, and not a new young master like Gu Xiaoyang. Ziyun, you said that you met Yiguchen in that small low-level empire? Dongfang Guangyao. That's right. Dongfang Ziyun nodded. Her heart was like a snake, and she was full of schemes. She had persevered from a side branch of the Dongfang family until now, and entered the core circle of the Dongfang family's younger generation. Her cultivation had also improved, and she had reached the 6th level of the Divine Palace. Of course, this was largely because she had clung onto Dongfang Guangyao's thigh. Dongfang Ziyun was extremely scheming. In order to save her own life, she had killed Dongfang Hong without hesitation in the Tianhuang Plains. In the end, she pushed all the blame for his death onto Yi Guqin. It could be said that the reason the Dongfang family and Yi Guqin had a grudge. To a large extent, it was because of Dongfang Ziyun's interference. It was because of her that the Dongfang family and Yi Guqin were at odds with each other. I heard that Yi Guqin also killed people of the Dongfang family? Dongfang Guangyao said indifferently. That's right. Yi Guqin was very decisive and ruthless. He didn't show any mercy. If I wasn't lucky enough to escape, I probably wouldn't have been able to escape death. Dongfang Ziyun's body trembled, and she pretended to be frightened. It's fine. Since Yi Guqin offended the Dongfang family, I will definitely make him pay the price. He definitely won't survive Burial Sky Island. Dongfang Guangyao didn't care. Then I'll need Brother Guangyao. Dongfang Ziyun's smile, but at the same time, her heart was cold. Yi Guqin was the only person who knew her. Dongfang Hong's was the only one who knew Dongfang Hong. Although the Dongfang family would not believe Yi Guqin's one-sided story, the Dongfang family would not believe him. However, to be on the safe side, Dongfang Ziyun would think of a way to get rid of Yi Guqin in the Burial Sky Island. Oh right, there's also the Baiming family. They've always been at odds with the Dongfang family. Now that we're on Burial Sky Island, we can get rid of them. Dongfang Guangyao smiled. Burial Sky Island was originally the place where the Sky Prides of the South Sky region and the Dark World fought. But now, it had become the place where the major forces schemed against each other. Somewhere in the South Sky region, there was a hidden pavilion. This was one of the strongholds of the Blood Shadow Pavilion. At this moment, 3 figures wearing blood-red robes and blood-red hoods appeared in a blood-red pavilion. Some of the Blood Shadow Pavilion's assassins saw this and couldn't help but exclaim, "Is it finally over? Are these 3 the only ones who survived?" In this blood-red pavilion, there were a total of 300 top-notch Sky Prides of assassins. In the end, only 3 of them walked out alive. It's the Thousand-Faced Demoness, Blade Armajura, and Killer Boy. As expected, the 3 of them survived until the end. Many of the Blood Shadow Pavilion's assassins exclaimed. The 3 of them could be said to be the strongest Sky Prides in the Blood Shadow Pavilion. They even dared to kill the Sky Prides of the Overlord-level forces. At this moment, a blood-red talisman fell from the sky. One of the 3 people raised his hand and took the talisman. There were only 3 words written on it. Yi Guqin. Hee, it seems like Burial Sky Island won't be too boring this time. A cold voice sounded. With the opening of Burial Sky Island, the entire South Sky region became restless. The 3 sects, 4 pavilions, 5 clans, and even the great dynasties began to make their moves. Meanwhile, in a mysterious place, the endless sea rumbled and surged. What was even more shocking was that this sea actually seemed to extend out of the void. It was vast, and no one knew how deep or far it was. Ordinary people would definitely be shocked by the scene in front of them. However, only some of the older members of the major forces vaguely knew what this place was. Sky Ceiling Sacred Ocean. A mountain, a sea, and a celestial valley. The mountain referred to the Sky Mountain Soar tribe. The celestial valley referred to the Supreme Celestial Valley. The sea referred to the Sky Ceiling Sacred Ocean in front of them, which seemed to have come from the void. At this moment, on the other side of the sea, 4 maidservants in blue dresses were carrying an ice palanquin. The ice palanquin swayed slightly, and the bead curtain flashed vaguely, revealing a corner inside. It was a young girl in a blue silk dress. Her ice blue hair set off her snow-white face. Her eyes were also ice blue, which was magnificent and mysterious. If Yi Guqin was here, he would definitely be able to recognize that this girl was very similar to someone. I heard that the Heaven Weeping Witch from the Dark World will also appear on Burial Sky Island this time. The Heaven Weeping Witch is a disaster and must be killed in the cradle. Perhaps we can join forces with the other emperors and even Di Haoyan to kill the Heaven Weeping Witch together. Also, I have a feeling that I will end a karma when I go to Burial Sky Island this time. Then who is the cause and effect on? The young girl with ice blue hair muttered to herself. Almost no one knew that a peerless genius in sky-sealing sacred ocean had come out of seclusion. The world had another name for her. One of the 4 emperors. The Holy Emperor. In a chaotic place filled with black fog, 2 figures stood there. One of them was a melancholy man in a snow-white robe. He was holding a jade flute horizontally and playing it. Beside him stood a silver-haired girl. The girl was as beautiful as ice. Her long silver hair set off her fair and delicate face. Her eyelashes were curled and long, and her nose and small mouth were all exquisite and pretty. She was like an angel who had fallen to the mortal world. One look at her would make one's heart melt. However, the girl's little face did not have the naive expression of a child. There was only a coldness that kept people thousands of miles away. Qianshu, you might be able to see the brother you have been thinking about day and night, the man in snow-white robe who was playing the flute said with a faint smile. Only then did the girl's little face faintly show a wisp of vitality and light. Brother Yi, the girl murmured. Chapter 1376. The entire Nantian region was surging with winds and clouds. In the sky, a ship traversed the void. It was the ship of the Sword Dynasty. Yi Guchen and the other Sword Sons were listening to Confuzi explain some information about Sky Burial Island. Sky Burial Island is located in the Two-World Mountain. It used to be a forbidden area, Confuzi said. Forbidden area? Yi Guchen was a little confused when he heard this. It was the first time he had heard of such a thing. Confuzi continued, there are some secrets of Nantian region that you may not know. In fact, apart from Sky Burial Island, there are 3 forbidden areas in Nantian region. 3 forbidden areas? Not only Yi Guchen, but Jian Jinghong and the others were also a little surprised, because they had never heard of the 3 forbidden areas in Nantian region. But why is there no such news in Nantian region at all? Jian Jinghong asked. Confuzi shook his head slightly and said, it's very simple. Because the 3 forbidden areas are guarded by the 3 hidden forces. Naturally, there is very little news spread out. I see. Yi Guchen suddenly understood. He didn't expect that the 3 hidden forces were actually responsible for this. However, Yi Guchen vaguely felt that the mountain, sea, and valley seemed to be the supervisors of Nantian region. Confuzi continued, although Sky Burial Island is not a forbidden area now, it used to be. Therefore, there may be various strange creatures of foreign clans in Sky Burial Island. Creatures of foreign clans? Jian Jinghong and the others were confused. Instead, Yi Guchen's eyes flashed with a dim light. Could it be? That's right. The creatures of foreign clans refer to the creatures of Dark World, Confuzi said. Dark World? The other Sword Sons were still confused. However, Yi Guchen was very clear. Because Duga's talent of seeking demons came from the soul-devouring clan in Dark World. And there were obviously many clans in Dark World. This soul-devouring clan seemed to be at the top in the Dark World. Therefore, when you are on Burial Sky Island, not only do you have to be wary of the geniuses of the Dark World, but you also have to be careful of the creatures of the Dark World. There may not be any particularly powerful existences among them, but if you encounter them, they will be very difficult to deal with, Confuzi warned. Understood. Jian Jinghong and the others nodded. By the way, your main task is to face the heavenly talents from the Dark World. I guess you don't know much about the Dark World, right? Confuzi asked. Hearing Confuzi's words, the Sword Sons present looked at each other and nodded slightly. Indeed, they had never come into contact with the Dark World. Yi Guchen's expression did not change. He had interacted with people from the underworld before. For example, Shui Yiqing and Shui should also be counted. In addition, Duga Qiuma had also met a genius from the Dark World in the Azura Bloody Road of the Molo dynasty. He was the mysterious number 1 on the blood ranking, Yi Tongshan. Presumably, Yi Tongshan would also participate this time. The Dark World is independent of the Nantian region. According to legend, it is a world formed by the combination of 7 Saint Emperor small worlds. However, this is only a legend. After all, it is too long ago, Confuzi explained. 7 Saint Emperor small worlds? The Sword Master's words caused everyone to be shocked. They had never expected the Dark World to have such a history. Yiguchen was also a little surprised. After all, he had experienced the Saint Emperor small worlds. The Saint Emperor world was an example. However, he also did not expect the Dark World to be formed by 7 Saint Emperor small worlds. Did that mean that the Dark World was jointly created by 7 Saint Emperors? What was the purpose of the 7 Saint Emperors? Why did the Dark World oppose the Nantian region? Yiguchen realized that the more he knew, the more doubts he had. Confuzi said, "Actually, you don't need to pay attention to how the Dark World came about. What you need to pay attention to is how powerful the geniuses of the Dark World are." Hearing this, everyone, including Yiguchen, paid full attention and perked up. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win every battle. They indeed needed to understand the geniuses of the Dark World. Confuzi looked around and said, "Actually, the Dark World is the same as the Nantian region. They also have some rankings for the geniuses. The Nantian region has 1 emperor, 4 kings, 10 young masters, and geniuses on the Dragon Phoenix list." Speaking of this, Confuzi glanced at Yiguchen. Because Yiguchen was a genius who had just become one of the 10 young masters. And the geniuses of the Dark World also have a saying, that is, the twin stars of war and calamity, the 4 giants, the 7 overlords, and the 13 guardians. Confuzi's words made Yiguchen and the others look slightly serious. Obviously, these geniuses of the Dark World were not easy to deal with. The strength of the 13 guardians is almost equivalent to the geniuses on the Dragon Phoenix list in the Nantian region. The 7 overlords are equivalent to the 10 young masters. The 4 giants are almost equivalent to the 4 kings. As for the twin stars of war and calamity, they are probably comparable to geniuses like Di Haotian. Confuzi's explanation made the atmosphere slightly silent. It seemed that the geniuses of the Dark World were stronger than they had imagined. So remember, on the burial island, the most important thing is to save your own life. The second thing is to get a ranking, Confuzi said earnestly. How do you calculate the ranking on the battlefield of geniuses? Jian Jinghong asked. It's very simple. The Nantian region and the Dark World will judge the strength of each other's geniuses. Then they will be divided into ordinary, dangerous, extremely dangerous, and forbidden. Killing geniuses of the Dark World of different levels will give you different points. The final score will be calculated and the final ranking on the battlefield of geniuses will be determined. Confuzi's explanation enlightened Yiguchen and the others. This kind of classification was simple and clear. In that case, won't Brother Yi be assigned to the extremely dangerous level by the geniuses of the Dark World? Jian Jinghong said with a smile. Master should be able to be assigned to the forbidden level, right? Mu Xingzu said. That's not necessarily true. There are very few geniuses of the Nantian region who can be rated as the forbidden level. Probably only those at the level of Di Haotian can reach it. But this is good. The higher the position, the easier it is to be targeted by the geniuses of the Dark World, Confuzi said. Yiguchen shook his head slightly. He didn't care what kind of level he would be judged by the geniuses of the Dark World. But Yiguchen was confident that he could compete with Di Haotian. A genius who was rated as the extremely dangerous level had a combat strength comparable to the forbidden level. It was exciting just thinking about it. And most importantly, Yiguchen wasn't the only one who had a combat strength comparable to the forbidden level. Even his clone, Duguqiuma, probably had a combat strength comparable to the forbidden level. When 2 forbidden level combatants joined forces, that kind of scene was unimaginable. Chapter 1377. After Confuzi's explanation, Yiguchen and the others had a basic understanding of the Dark World and Sky Burial Island. Next, they went straight to Borderline Mountain. Borderline Mountain was located in the far west of the Nantian region. Because it used to be a forbidden area, it was desolate and uninhabited. However, this deathly silence was broken not long after. Many ships sailed across the sky. Young geniuses from various forces stood on them. They were all dignified, high-spirited, and eager to fight. The battle on Sky Burial Island was not only an internal battle in the Nantion region, but also a battle with the geniuses of the Dark World. It would be a big stage. Anyone who could perform well would become a celebrity in the Nantion region. Those geniuses who had not joined the Overlord-level forces would also be recruited by the Overlord-level forces. Therefore, none of the geniuses dared to underestimate this battle. That's the fleet of ships from the Sword Dynasty. Is that the famous Yiguchen? Many people from different forces turned their gazes to a ship. It was the ship Yiguchen was on. Yiguchen defeated Nangong Ju-yun not long ago and became the young master of the artifact sect. I wonder how he will perform this time. Yiguchen is the best in the Holy Emperor realm. However, with Di Haotian and the others here, Yiguchen might not even be able to keep his life, let alone show off. Many people were discussing spiritedly. Yiguchen ignored the discussions of the outside world. At this moment, he looked into the distance. He could vaguely see a towering mountain at the end of the sky. It seemed to extend into the void. He could also see spatial turbulence in the void. Sky Burial Island is located in the void of Borderline Mountain. You can teleport to the island through some teleportation formations, Kenfuzi said. Yiguchen nodded slightly. Soon, the ships of many forces approached Borderline Mountain. Brother Yi, you're here. At this moment, a hearty voice sounded. Yiguchen looked over and saw that it was the War God Empire's Zhao Shinkong. Brother Zhao. Yiguchen nodded slightly. He and Zhao Shinkong had long since turned hostility into friendship. Not to mention, Zhao Xiaodi was still by his side as a maid. Perhaps because of this relationship, the conflict between the Sword Dynasty and the War God Dynasty eased a little. Although it wasn't to the extent of immediately becoming friends with him, the smell of gunpowder was no longer as strong. A short moment later, the group from the Mola Dynasty arrived as well. Duguchioimo stood in the wind, his snow-white hair fluttering in the wind. His devilishly handsome face was expressionless. He did not greet Yiguchen because he was a sharp sword hidden in the darkness. This sharp sword would be completely unsheathed on Sky Burial Island, and the world would know about it. It was hard to imagine what kind of shock and uproar it would cause when the news that Duguchioimo was Yiguchen's clone was leaked. Not long after, the groups from the Luo Fu Sword Pavilion and the Misty Sword Pavilion arrived as well. Jun Xiaoyao was dressed in white and looked extraordinarily handsome. He nodded slightly at Yiguchen. As for Yi Cangyue, she also greeted him symbolically. She still did not know how to face Yiguchen. It seems that Yiguchen still has allies. He's not fighting alone. Many people thought to themselves when they saw this scene. Most people thought that Yiguchen would not be able to walk out of Sky Burial Island alive. However, it was not certain that he would die. Why bother greeting a dead man? At this moment, a cold snort was heard. The group from the Imperial Heaven Sword Pavilion had arrived. Huang Qianqiu's purple hair fluttered in the wind, and his purple eyes shone with divine light. It was breathtaking. He was handsome and had the heavenly desolate combat body. He looked like a god of war. At this moment, Huang Qianqiu looked at Yiguchen as if he was looking at a dead man. He had always wanted to obtain Yiguchen's ultimate sword domain technique. However, he had never found a suitable opportunity in the sacred emperor world. He would not miss this chance to go to Sky Burial Island. Huang Qianqiu. Yiguchen did not avoid his gaze. Yiguchen had already lost his patience with this enemy who had always been thinking about him. If there was a chance, he would not mind having a life-and-death battle with Huang Qianqiu on Sky Burial Island. At this moment, a lady's voice was suddenly heard. I didn't expect you to be Yiguchen, the one who killed the 7 great bears of the Starry Sword Pavilion. Seeing is indeed better than hearing about it 100 times. Yiguchen frowned when he heard the voice. Not only him, but many people also looked in the direction of the voice. On the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion's airship, there was a tall and slender woman in a purple dress. Her purple dress was glowing and fluttering in the wind. Her face was fair and translucent, and her purple eyes were clear. She seemed to be surrounded by a purple aura. The first impression everyone had when they saw the lady was noble. It was as if she was born with a sense of superiority, as if she was a descendant of the heavens. However, it was not the lady's temperament or appearance that was shocking, but the aura that was faintly emitted from her body. Am I mistaken? The 9th level of the divine dwelling realm? How is this possible? When did the Starry Sword Pavilion nurture such a genius? The entire place was stunned. Many martial artists from various forces widened their eyes. The most famous geniuses of the Starry Sword Pavilion were the 7 Great Bears, and they had all been killed by Yiguchen. But now, another heaven's favored daughter had appeared. It was truly shocking. However, not everyone was unaware of it. Some people from the overlords were not too surprised. They had known about it for a long time. Have the true geniuses of the Starry Sword Pavilion begun to show themselves? I wonder if the 7 Great Bears have shown themselves, Jun Xiaoyao muttered to himself with a frown. The Ziwei Star Maiden was not simple. It was rumored that she had the Ziwei Emperor Star. Such a fate was the sign of an emperor. Although Jiang Ziwei was a lady, it did not weaken the power of her fate. At the same time Jiang Ziwei appeared, Dugu Qiuma frowned. That was because he had the Tiansha fate. Strictly speaking, such a fate clashed with the Ziwei Star fate. One was the Tiansha fate, and the other was the Emperor Star. I thought that the Starry Sword Pavilion would have no one after Gu Xiaoyang and the 4 young Star Lords died. Who would have thought? Yiguchen sighed secretly. As expected, an Overlord-class force wasn't that simple. He could also feel that Jiang Ziwei's strength was even stronger than Gu Xiaoyang's. However, she had been hidden by the Starry Sword Pavilion and had not shown herself before. It was only now that the 7 Great Bears had died that she came out to support them. Gu Xiaoyang and the other trash are dead. I'm a little curious. How strong are you? Jiang Ziwei's beautiful eyes sparkled as she sized up Yiguchen. She did not show any hostility. She did not even care that Yiguchen had killed Gu Xiaoyang and the others. She was just curious. Chapter 1378. The way Jiang Ziwei looked at Yiguchen now, there was no deep hatred. After all, the 7 Great Bears had nothing to do with her. They were the resources of the Sons of 7 Stars. The ones who really hated Yiguchen were the Sons of 7 Stars, not her. If the Star Master had not warned her to deal with Yiguchen on Sky Burial Island, Jiang Ziwei would not have given up. Jiang Ziwei might not have attacked Yiguchen. Hearing Jiang Ziwei's words, Yiguchen said indifferently, "Curiosity kills the cat. If you're curious about me, you'll have to be careful of your life." Hearing Yiguchen's words, many of the Sky Prides present were speechless. Jiang Ziwei was a top Sky Pride of the Starry Sword Pavilion who was comparable to the 1 Emperor and 4 Sovereigns. It could be said that there were not many Sky Prides present who were qualified to talk to Jiang Ziwei, let alone threaten her. However, Yiguchen did not care at all and directly threatened her. Jiang Ziwei was slightly stunned when she heard that. Then, she curled her lips and said, "You're really as arrogant as the rumors say. In that case, we'll see what happens at Sky Burial Island." Jiang Ziwei did not say anything else. As a Sky Pride who had been hidden for the first time, she naturally had her own arrogance. She believed that as long as she was willing to take action, she could suppress Yiguchen. The 7th Star Master and the others had also arrived and were sitting cross-legged in the void. He also did not say anything because after Sky Burial Island ended, Yiguchen would definitely die. With the arrival of the 4 Great Sword Pavilions, the atmosphere became more and more heated. At that moment, someone saw the ship in the distance and exclaimed again, "The people from the Overlord families are here." Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. They saw the Dongfang family's team first. That young man in a golden robe who is emitting light should be the top Sky Pride of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Guangyao. Yes, one of the 10 great childs, Child Tong Tian, is extremely powerful. However, before everyone could exclaim, the Nangong family, Shimin family, and Baiming family's teams arrived together as if they had made an agreement. On the Nangong family's side, Nangong Ju Yun was also present. When he saw Yiguchen, his face was covered with a layer of dark clouds. The humiliation divine artifact sect had suffered was still fresh in his mind. Nangong Ju Yun's expression is truly terrifying. Of course. If it were you, the position of young sect master that should have been within your grasp was snatched away by someone else. Furthermore, it was a complete defeat. Would you be willing to accept that? Everyone at the scene whispered to each other in whispers. On the side of the Shimin family, the leader of the younger generation was a fatty with a big belly. This fatty was fair and tender, and the fat on his body swayed like waves. His 10 thick and fat fingers were covered with origin rings, and he looked like a nouveau riche. That must be the genius of the Shimin family, the Fugue young master, one of the top 10 young masters, Shimin Fugue. Some people said when they saw the fatty. Shimin Fugue was also a weirdo. Although he was one of the 10 great childs, his combat strength was the lowest among them. His only specialty was his good luck. It was rumored that he had the noble star fate and was born with great luck. Wherever he went, he could pick up treasures and find hidden treasures. The origin ring on his finger contained all kinds of divine weapons and treasures. Because of this, although his actual combat strength was not high, with all kinds of divine weapons and treasures, he did not need to fear any genius. At this moment, Shimin Fugue's bean-sized eyes glanced at Yi Tsangyue of the Misty Sword Pavilion. Fairy Tsangyue, I'll give you this divine tribulation weapon protective pendant. Shimin Fugue looked at Yi Tsangyue with his beady eyes and a lecherous expression. Shimin Fugue was also one of Yi Tsangyue's suitors. Seeing Shimin Fugue casually give away a divine tribulation weapon protective pendant, many people were dumbfounded. The world of the rich was indeed different. However, Yi Tsangyue did not even look at Shimin Fugue. It was as if she treated him like air. Sigh, I originally wanted to give my heart to the moon, but the moon shines on the ditch. Shimin Fugue looked up at the sky and sighed sadly. If a handsome young master had said this, it would have made some sense. However, with Shimin Fugue's pot-bellied appearance, it was comical no matter how one looked at it. As for the Baiming family, the leader was a young girl in tight clothes. Her hair was tied up in a ponytail, and she had a pretty face. Her beautiful eyes were long and narrow, and she had a cold and sharp aura. The Baiming family was famous for their ghostly movement techniques and deadly martial arts. The 2 king sword techniques that Yiguchen had obtained previously, god slaying and deity slaying, came from the Baiming family. That must be the genius of the Baiming family, Baiming Xing. She's ranked 8th on the Dragon Phoenix list. She's not weak at all. Many voices were heard. Baiming Xing was considered a famous genius in the Nantian region. The Dongfang family. Baiming Xing snorted inwardly as she looked at the Dongfang family. The Baiming family and the Dongfang family had a long-standing feud and had always been at odds. Therefore, the geniuses of the 2 families had always been fighting both openly and covertly. Previously in the Saint Origin dynasty, Yiguchen had been mistaken by Dongfang Ziyun and the others for being from the Baiming family because he had used the god-slaying sword technique. However, the geniuses of the Dongfang family did not pay attention to the Baiming family at this moment. They all looked at Yiguchen. Dongfang Guangyao said in a playful tone, "Is he Yiguchen? He's the one who killed the Dongfang family's people?" Dongfang Ziyun nodded and said, "Yes, it's him." On the other side, Yiguchen also noticed Dongfang Ziyun. "It's her." If Dongfang Ziyun had not appeared, he would have almost forgotten about her. This woman was definitely a vicious person. In order to survive, she did not hesitate to kill her companion, Dongfang Hong. After that, she pushed everything to Yiguchen, which led to the feud between the Dongfang family and Yiguchen. It could be said that without Dongfang Ziyun, the feud between Yiguchen and the Dongfang family would not have developed. Thinking of this, Yiguchen's eyes were filled with coldness. "Are you Yiguchen? You killed the Dongfang family's people and almost killed Sister Ziyun. You better pray that you don't run into me on the burial island," Dongfang Guangyao said calmly. Yiguchen's performance in the Saint Imperial world was outstanding and he had even killed Gu Xiaoyang. However, Dongfang Guangyao was also one of the older geniuses. He was not afraid of Yiguchen. Huh? You don't even know that you've been used as a tool. Why don't you ask the person next to you who killed the Dongfang family's people? Yi Guchen sneered. Yi Guchen, what are you talking about? Are you still trying to deny it? Or are you afraid of Brother Guangyao? Dongfang Ziyun's eyes flashed as she scolded. Chapter 1379. After such a long time, Dongfang Hong was already dead and there was no evidence. Dongfang Ziyun thought that she had nothing to worry about. No one would know about what she had done. Except for Yi Guchen. However, it was obvious that Dongfang Guangyao and the others would not believe Yi Guchen. As long as Dongfang Ziyun insisted that Yi Guchen had killed Dongfang Hong, Yi Guchen could not do anything to her. That was indeed the case. Dongfang Guangyao sneered. Yi Guchen, haven't you always been arrogant? Are you trying to use such a childish method to absolve yourself? Dongfang Ziyun's eyes flashed with coldness and pride. Yi Guchen, no matter how you defend yourself, it's useless. Your ending will not change. Yi Guchen shook his head slightly. His expression did not change at all because of Dongfang Ziyun's words. I don't care what you say. In front of absolute power, all schemes are useless. Inside Sky Burial Island, just prepare to die, Yi Guchen said indifferently. As soon as he said that, all the cultivators from the surrounding forces were stunned. Yi Guchen was openly threatening to kill the Dongfang family? Yi Guchen, how dare you? Dongfang Guangyao scolded coldly. As the top genius of the Dongfang family, no one dared to threaten a member of his family in front of him. Dongfang Ziyun originally wanted to mock and ridicule Yi Guchen, but when she saw Yi Guchen's frosty eyes, her heart began to throb for no reason. It was as if Yi Guchen could really kill her. No, that's impossible. Yi Guchen can't even protect himself in Sky Burial Island. How can he kill me? Dongfang Ziyun muttered as if she was comforting herself. At this moment, many forces had gathered outside Two World Mountain. At this moment, there were black clouds in the distance, and black warships were flying over. It's the demonic sect. Seeing this scene, everyone cried out in alarm. At this moment, at the bow of the demonic extermination sect's ship, a young man in a black robe stood with his hands behind his back. His appearance was handsome, but his skin was pale, as if he hadn't seen the sun for a long time. His eyes were pure black, like two black holes. As he stood there, he looked like a demon lord. It's one of the four emperors, Hades' emperor, Holy Yama. Upon seeing this figure, an uproar broke out in the surrounding area. The outstanding talents of the four sovereigns had extremely important statuses. In Sky Burial Island, they could be said to be the mainstay of the main force. They were the only ones who could resist the war and calamity stars and the heavenly talents of the dark world. As for which one, she was standing on another warship. As soon as the Holy Yama arrived, his gaze locked onto Duguchima. A wave of hostility spread out. Are you the one who Duguchioimo, the one whom one has high hopes for? The Holy Yama's voice was cold. Holy Yama. Duga's expression remained unchanged. He also knew that if he wanted to obtain the Demon Extermination Heart Sutra of the Demon Extermination Sect, he would need which one's help. In this way, he would definitely clash with the Holy Yama. There was no doubt about the Holy Yama's strength. As one of the four emperors, he was on the same level as Huang Qianqiu. However, Duguchima wasn't afraid at all. After all, his temperament was extremely cold and he didn't have the emotion of fear at all. I'm warning you, give up as soon as possible. Otherwise, Sky Burial Island will be your grave, the Holy Yama said indifferently. Princess Luo Ho looked worried when she heard this. Duguchima was expressionless. He said indifferently, if you have the ability, you can try. Sensing the thick smell of gunpowder, some of the martial artists from the various forces faintly revealed a trace of worry on their faces. The battle on Sky Burial Island this time was a battle between the heavenly talents of the South Horizon region and the Dark World. If the heavenly talents of the South Horizon region fought seriously, it would obviously affect the overall situation. Just as everyone was extremely worried, people from other forces arrived in the distant sky. They were the Heavenly God Sword sect and the Battle God Saber sect. On the Battle God Saber sect's side, Dao Wuming and Gu Zun were both there. On the heavenly godsword sect's side, Chu Xuanzhen and the others stood at the bow of the ship. Behind them, there was a golden dragon ship. There was no doubt about the person sitting on it. Di Haoyan is here. Many exclamations sounded from all directions. There were also many heavenly talents with traces of reverence and admiration in their eyes. As one of the 1 emperor and 4 emperors, Di Haoyan's strength was undoubtedly the best in the entire South Horizon region. Under Di Haoyan's brilliance, even Chu Xuanzhen, who had been in the limelight in the Holy Emperor realm, dimmed a lot. Many people present once again cast their gazes on Yi Guqin. The feud between him and Di Haoyan had spread throughout the entire South Horizon region. It was the topic of many people's leisure conversation. As the only existence who could seriously injure Di Haoyan, Yi Guqin was now the focus of attention. Phew! Yi Guqin let out a deep breath. Had this day finally come? On the side of the heavenly godsword sect, Wen Donglu and the other saints were also there. However, he just looked at Yi Guqin coldly and did not say anything. With Di Haoyan involved, the result was obvious. Chu Xuanzhen stood straight and looked at Yi Guqin, saying, "I didn't expect that you would really dare to come to the burial island. Where is Di Haoyan? Won't he come out and meet me?" Yi Guqin's lips curled into a cold smile. "Meet him? Haha, do you think senior brother Haoyan has the time to deal with you? He will be the pillar of the South Horizon region on the burial island and compete with the heavenly talents of the dark world. Why would he care about an ant like you?" Chu Xuanzhen's words were as sharp as a knife. "Do you not care, or do you not dare?" Yi Guqin said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura comparable to that of a celestial palace venerable spread out from the golden dragon ship. That power was as if he was facing a god. This pressure, the celestial palace venerable realm? As expected, Di Haoyan has taken that step long ago. He is ahead of his peers and has reached the honorable realm. As soon as this aura was released, it was like a meteorite falling into the sea, setting off huge waves. Among the younger generation, very few people could reach the venerable realm. Even the 4 emperors wanted to find an opportunity to break through to the venerable realm on the burial island. However, Di Haoyan had already broken through. How could they compete? It's over. I thought that with Yi Guqin's current strength, he could barely fight with Di Haoyan. Now, it seems that it's completely impossible. Yes, the gap between the major realms is too big. It's impossible to make up for it easily. Yi Guqin is in danger now. After learning that Di Haoyan had broken through to the venerable realm, many people looked at Yi Guqin with pity in their eyes. Yi Guqin's expression did not change at all, but his eyes narrowed slightly. With Di Haoyan's talent as a 10th grade supreme talent, it was not too surprising that he had broken through to the venerable realm. An aloof and indifferent voice came from the golden dragon ship. "An ant who once relied on external objects to luckily hurt me is now qualified to be presumptuous in front of me?" Chapter 1380. Hearing this indifferent voice that was like that of a god, the hearts of all the sky prides present trembled slightly. This was the extraordinary confidence of a 10th grade supreme talent. He could look down on anyone of his generation. Even Yi Guqin, who had just created a miracle in the Holy Emperor realm, was not taken seriously by him. You can try again this time. Yi Guqin did not lose his composure. After all, he was cold and arrogant. Di Haoyan's words could not anger him. And if Di Haoyan was still so arrogant and conceited, in the future, Dugu would definitely teach him a lesson. Sensing the intense tension in the air, all the sky prides present felt a sense of solemnity. In this battle on Sky Island, the South Horizon region would be in internal strife before they even met the talents of the Dark World. Seeing this, Elder Qing Song of the Luo Fu Sword Pavilion stepped forward and said, "You have to understand that this battle is a battle between the South Horizon region and the Dark World. Although there are grievances between you, I suggest that we unite against the outside world first." Old Man Qing Song's words made many important figures from various forces nod their heads. Indeed, the Dark World was a great threat to the South Horizon region. If the talents of the South Horizon region failed in this battle on Sky Island, the consequences and impact would be very far-reaching. Yiguchen did not say anything. Although he valued friendship and righteousness, he was not the kind of person who was completely righteous. It was impossible for him to give up dealing with Di Haoyan and the others for the sake of fighting against the Dark World. At most, in the early stage, Yiguchen would not take the initiative to kill the talents of the South Horizon region. Of course, if Nangong Jueyun, Chu Xuanzhen, Dongfang Ziyun, and the others wanted to deal with him, Yiguchen would definitely not show any mercy. Well, since almost everyone is here, let's go in, an elder of an overlord force said. All the talents of the South Horizon region present rushed toward the Two-World Mountain. In the void above the Two-World Mountain, there was a spatial turbulence flowing. Vaguely, there seemed to be a huge island in the depths of the space, which was filled with an ancient and desolate aura. Is that Sky Burial Island? The closer he got, the more Yiguchen could feel the wild and savage aura of Sky Burial Island. As expected of one of the Forbidden Lands, Yiguchen was suddenly curious. Where were the 3 great Forbidden Lands of the South Horizon region? Why did the 3 hidden forces guard the 3 great Forbidden Lands? However, these secrets could only be explored in the future. Around the Two-World Mountain, there were some ancient teleportation arrays covered in dust. After activating them with heaven crystals, they could teleport the geniuses of the South Horizon region to Burial Sky Island. However, because the teleportation array was old, the destination of the teleportation was uncertain. Even if a group of people used the same teleportation formation, they could be teleported to different locations on Sky Burial Island. Soon, Yiguchen and the other prodigies of the Sword Dynasty landed on a teleportation array. Brother Yi, the entire Burial Island is divided into 4 islands: East, West, South, and North. Our South Horizon region occupies the East and South Islands. The Dark World occupies the West Island and the North Island. Do we need to gather together then? Jian Jinghong asked Yiguchen. Because Yiguchen was now Jiankui of the Sword Dynasty, he should be the leader. Hearing this, Yiguchen thought for a while and said lightly, "This teleportation array is not stable. If you are teleported to the West Island and the North Island, you will be in danger. How about this? No matter where the prodigies of the Sword Dynasty are, we will gather on the South Island. As for what happens after that, we will plan it later," Yiguchen said. Okay. All the swordsmen nodded. Including Yiguchen, many prodigies of the South Horizon region stood on different teleportation arrays and activated them with heaven crystals. The teleportation arrays began to burst into blazing brilliance, and the space trembled like water waves. The figures of Yiguchen and the others twisted, and then they disappeared from the spot. On the other side, Dugu, Chioma, and Princess Luoho also stood on a teleportation array and were directly teleported away. The prodigies of the South Horizon region were constantly being teleported to Burial Island. As for which of the 4 islands of the East, West, North, and South, that was up to fate. At this time, Di Haoyan also walked out of the dragon boat. His whole body was shrouded in brilliance, as if the Son of God had come to the world. If my investigation is correct, there is a mechanism key hidden in each of the 4 islands. As long as I can get the 4 mechanism keys, I can make the real core of Burial Island appear. And the earthly sovereign sword may be among them. Di Haoyan thought to himself. For him, nothing was more important than getting the earthly sovereign sword. Because as long as he could get the earthly sovereign sword, he would have gathered the 3 swords: heavenly sovereign, earthly sovereign, and human sovereign. At that time, the 3 swords would become one, and the primordial sword, the 3 sovereign sacred swords, would appear in the world. Compared to finding the earthly sovereign sword, dealing with Yiguchen was not an important matter. Therefore, after entering Burial Island, Di Haoyan's main focus would be on collecting the 4 mechanism keys. As for dealing with Yiguchen, he could leave it to others. Xuanzhen, I'll leave Yiguchen's matter to you. I still have important things to do, and Yiguchen is not worth my time, Di Haoyan said indifferently. Yes, Senior Brother Haoyan. I will not accept your request. Chu Xuanzhen cupped his fists. He was one of the top 10 childs, and he had the Sword King body. Other than Di Haotian, he was not afraid of anyone. He was confident that he could even suppress Yi Guchen. Di Haotian nodded slightly and stepped into the teleportation array. Next, almost all the prodigies of the South Horizon region were sent away by the teleportation array. At this moment, 4 maids in blue suddenly appeared in the distance, carrying an ice palanquin. In the palanquin sat a young girl with long, icy blue hair. When they saw the palanquin appear, many of the people present revealed a look of bewilderment. Could it be that the people from that place are here? Yes, it's the people from the Sealing Heaven Sacred Ocean, but it seems that they have never intervened in the Battle of Burial Island, right? I vaguely heard that the people from the Sealing Heaven Sacred Ocean came this time to deal with the Heaven Weeping Witch from the Dark World. I see. If the Heaven Weeping Witch fully matures, she can indeed create endless killing and even cause a catastrophe in the South Horizon region. Many of the surrounding forces were discussing. The young girl with long, icy blue hair had already walked out of the palanquin. Her skin was as white as ice and snow. She was tall and slender, and her pupils were icy blue. She was very beautiful. There was also a faint chill lingering around her. The Heaven Weeping Witch should not exist in this world. And my karma, who has it? The young girl muttered in her heart and stepped into a teleportation array. Many of the surrounding warriors were secretly speechless. Not only did this young girl come from the Sealing Heaven Sacred Ocean, but she was also one of the 4 emperors. If she made a move, the Heaven Weeping Witch from the Dark World would be in great danger. Chapter 1381. Sky Burial Island used to be one of the forbidden areas of the Nantian region. Although it was no longer a forbidden area and had become a stage for the young geniuses of the 2 camps to fight, the eeriness and strangeness had never disappeared. This was a grayish-brown barren land surrounded by dark clouds. In the void, a ripple spread out, and Yi Guchen's figure appeared. Did they really separate? Yi Guchen looked around and found that Jian Jinghong and the others were not around. He was not too surprised. If it were an ordinary genius who encountered a situation of being alone on Sky Burial Island, he might be very nervous. However, Yi Guchen was very calm, not to mention his strength. Even in the 2 camps of the Nantian region and the Dark World, he could be regarded as a top genius among the younger generation. Therefore, as long as there were no accidents, Yi Guchen could protect himself. After checking the surrounding environment, Yi Guchen took out a special crystal. After injecting his genuine qi into it, a light curtain spread out. It showed the general layout of the entire Sky Burial Island. There were also many dense light spots scattered on it. These light spots represented the geniuses of the Nantian region. Through the light spots, it could be seen that most of the geniuses of the Nantian region had been transmitted to the East Island and the South Island. Only a small number of unlucky geniuses were transmitted to the West Island and the North Island of the Dark World. Yi Guchen was one of them. Am I in the West Island now? Yi Guchen's expression didn't change at all. Even though he knew that he was in the enemy camp, his expression didn't change at all. With his strength, it wasn't too difficult for him to return to the East Island and the South Island. To be honest, in the entire Dark World, only the War and Calamity twin stars and the 4 magnates could pose a threat to him. As for the other geniuses, Yi Guchen didn't have to be afraid of them at all. Yi Guchen didn't have to be too afraid of the 7 bullies or the 13 gangsters. Therefore, Yi Guchen was not in a hurry. He decided to start investigating Sky Burial Island. On this barren land, the wind was chilly, and there were white bones of unknown creatures on the ground. The Sky-Burying Island was a very peculiar existence. It seemed like it was located in the South Horizon region, but it wasn't in the South Horizon region. It was located in the crevice of space. In the South Horizon region and not in the South Horizon region? A light flashed through Yi Guchen's heart. He suddenly remembered what had happened in the Heavenless Sword realm. That mysterious consciousness clone, the young girl Ah Sang, had once said. Her true body seemed to be in the South Horizon region, but also not in the South Horizon region. Could it be that Ah Sang is related to Sky Burial Island? Yi Guchen wondered. He recalled that Asang had said that her body was in the same place as the Earth's sovereign sword. Didn't this mean that the Earth's sovereign sword might be on Burial Sky Island? After coming to this conclusion, Yiguchen was also quite surprised. He hadn't expected that Sky Burial Island could actually have such a secret buried there. At this moment, Yiguchen's sea of consciousness suddenly flickered with a fluorescent light. It was the light of consciousness that Asang had given him. With this light, Yiguchen could find Asang's true body. No wonder Di Haoyin did not seem to have much interest in attacking me. It turns out that his main objective was to come to Sky Burial Island to find the earthly Emperor Sword. Yiguchen finally understood. To Di Haoyin, the earthly sovereign sword was more important than anything else. No wonder he was not in a hurry to deal with Yiguchen. Looks like Di Haoyin must have gotten wind of some news. He'll definitely try his best to find the Earth's sovereign sword, and I can't let him get the Earth's sovereign sword. Yiguchen's eyes were filled with determination. If Di Haoyin really managed to collect all 3 swords, Su Jianshi wouldn't be the only one in danger. Di Haoyin would also condense the Tri-Emperor's sacred sword, and his strength would soar to an unimaginable level. However, if the Earth's sovereign sword is really that easy to find, it would have already appeared by now. Di Haoyin wouldn't be able to find the Earth's sovereign sword in such a short time. I can make use of this time to make some preparations. After Yiguchen made up his mind, he felt a little more pressure in his heart. He moved in the direction of the South Island. This was because he, Jian Jinghong, and the other Sword Sons had agreed to gather at the South Island after arriving at Sky Burial Island. After about half an hour, Yiguchen still didn't see a single shadow. Looks like Sky Burial Island covers a huge area, Yiguchen thought to himself. Just the West Island alone was like a miniature continent. One could imagine the size of the entire Sky Burial Island. At this moment, a few black shadows suddenly appeared in front of him. Are they the sky prides of the Dark World? Yiguchen was on guard and looked over. However, to his surprise, those black shadows weren't human. They were like human-shaped fog, wearing a pitch-black helmet, armor, and so on. It was like an empty armor shell that was filled with black fog. Could they be living creatures from the Dark World? Yiguchen's eyes turned serious. Before they came to Two Boundaries Mountain, Confuzi had warned them. Although Sky Burial Island wasn't as dangerous as the previous Forbidden Land, there would still be some living creatures from the Dark World. Confuzi had already told Yiguchen and the others about the possible living creatures from the Dark World that they might encounter. This thing should be the so-called Een Demon God, Yiguchen muttered to himself. In the Dark World, there were also many clans. For example, the Soul-Devouring clan, which was the origin of Duga's talent in seeking demons, was a clan that was quite powerful in the Dark World. The Een Demon God in front of them was also a living creature from the Dark World, but it was more ordinary. This kind of Een Demon God had great resistance to physical attacks. They seemed to be strange creatures that had been formed by merging dark soul power with all kinds of battle armor. When Yiguchen discovered the Een Demon Gods, Yiguchen's expression changed. The Een Demon Gods had obviously discovered Yiguchen. At that moment, they pounced on him like vengeful spirits, releasing soul sound waves at the same time. Such soul sound waves would shatter the sea of consciousness of some ordinary sky prides who didn't have any spiritual items protecting their sea of consciousness. However, Yiguchen didn't do anything. The Een Demon God's soul sound waves blasted into Yiguchen's sea of consciousness, but it couldn't cause any harm to him. The Een Demon Gods were obviously shaken as well. Under their helmets, 2 spots of ghostly fire flickered like eyes. It's my turn now. Yiguchen raised his hand and the 9-colored profound bomb spread out. To the Een Demon Gods, physical attacks weren't very effective. Only the power of extreme yang, such as lightning and flames, could effectively kill them. To deal with the Een Demon Gods, Yiguchen didn't need to use his Chaos Divine Flame. Therefore, he only used the 9-colored profound bomb. Soon, with a few sharp cries, the Een Demon Gods turned into ashes. Helmets, armors, and other items fell to the ground. At that moment, Yiguchen noticed that something was rolling out from the armors. This is... Yiguchen was surprised. Chapter 1382. The thing that rolled out from the armor was a crystal-like crystal. There seemed to be a wisp of mist flowing inside. Could this be a demon soul crystal? Yi Guqin muttered. Before coming to Burial Sky Island, he had learned about the creatures of Dark World. Because the Een demon god was formed from dark souls, it would drop a crystal called the demon soul crystal after it was killed. It was said that the crystal was very helpful in cultivating one's soul. It was Yi Guqin's first time getting it. He picked up the crystal and felt a pure soul power. Yi Guqin thought for a while, then activated his chaotic sea of consciousness and tried to absorb the soul power. To Yi Guqin's surprise, not only could the soul power in the crystal be absorbed, it also seemed to be helpful in shaping the soul palace. It has such an effect? It was out of Yi Guqin's expectation. He finally understood why Burial Sky Island was the best place for some geniuses to break through to the honorable realm. Putting other opportunities aside, the crystals that were obtained after killing the Een demon god were enough to allow one to break through to the honorable realm. Although these creatures from the dark world are strange, from another perspective, they might be a kind of treasure. Yi Guqin collected the demon soul crystals that were dropped by the Een demon gods. As Yi Guqin was in the chaotic sea of consciousness, it was more difficult for him to break through. Hence, the few demon soul crystals were far from enough for him to form the soul palace. Moreover, Yi Guqin had already planned to break through after cultivating his spiritual dwelling into a world spiritual dwelling. Hence, he only needed to collect resources now. Then, Yi Guqin went on his way to meet the Een demon gods and collect the demon soul crystals. What made Yi Guqin slightly disappointed was that although there were quite a few creatures from the dark world on Zongtian Island, they were not everywhere. After a few hours, Yi Guqin only met a few Een demon gods. Just as Yi Guqin was feeling disappointed, he suddenly sensed the fluctuations of an intense battle ahead of him. Yi Guqin's eyes flashed. His figure flashed as he approached a withered tree. He looked into the distance and saw two figures being besieged by dozens of Een demon gods. That's a prodigy from the dark world. Yi Guqin's eyes narrowed. The two figures were both men. One of them was tall and thin, and the other was dressed in a black robe. His skin was pale, and he looked like the impermanence of the underworld. The other man was dressed in a red robe and wielded a long spear. His attacks were ferocious. Both of their cultivation were around the 6th layer of the divine dwelling, and their strength wasn't weak. However, what they were facing were dozens of Een demon gods that were immune to physical damage. Hence, it was not easy to deal with them. That tall and thin man with pale skin should be one of the 13 gangsters of the dark world, Gui Wuchang. The other red-robed man with the long spear is also one of the 13 gangsters, Yang Hong, Yi Guqin murmured. He didn't know much about the dark world. However, the South Horizon region had some information about the prodigies of the dark world. Yi Guqin had also read it carefully. These two were among the 13 gangsters. The 13 gangsters of the dark world are comparable to the prodigies on the Dragon Phoenix list of the South Horizon region. They are not weak, Yi Guqin thought to himself. If an ordinary prodigy from the South Horizon region were to encounter the 13 gangsters, he would definitely avoid them as far as possible. After all, the prodigies who could stand out in such a cruel place like the dark world were not easy to deal with. Their combat experience and strength were even stronger than the prodigies on the Dragon Phoenix list of the South Horizon region. However, this was no pressure for Yi Guqin. The prodigies of the two worlds were divided into 4 levels. Ordinary level, dangerous level, extremely dangerous level, and tab level. With his current strength, he might not be able to suppress Di Haoyan, but he could at least contend with him. In this way, Yi Guqin's strength should be comparable to the tab level. Although Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong were the 13 gangsters, they could only be considered as dangerous level. The gap between them was not small. Therefore, Yi Guqin did not have any scruples. He just hid in the dark and observed. If they were prodigies from the South Horizon region who had no enmity with him, Yi Guqin might help them. However, since they were prodigies from the dark world, Yi Guqin did not have to take action. He could just watch from the sidelines. When the snipe and the clam fought, the fisherman would benefit. As time passed, Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong finally killed the dozens of Yin demon gods. Ha, we have obtained dozens of demon soul crystals again, Yang Hong laughed. This is nothing. I heard that someone found a Yin Wind Demon Valley in the North Island. It seems to be a lair of the Yin demon gods, Gui Wuchang said in a hoarse voice. Yin Wind Demon Valley. Yi Guchen, who was hiding in the dark, heard this and his eyes flashed. He made a mental note of it. At this moment, Gui Wuchang seemed to have sensed something. His pale face suddenly turned to Yi Guchen. He waved his hand and his genuine qi burst out like a waterfall. Who is it? With a loud bang, the withered tree was smashed into pieces. Yi Guchen's body flashed and revealed himself. You are from the South Horizon region? Both Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong were surprised when they saw this. This was the West Island, the territory of the Dark World's prodigies. Even if some of the South Horizon region's prodigies were unlucky and landed in the West Island, they should be hiding like rats and on tenterhooks. However, at this moment, Yi Guchen's expression was calm and composed. This caused Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong to raise their guard. Yang Hong took out a jade slip and checked it. He frowned slightly and said, "Why is there no record of this person?" If there is no record, it means that this person is not famous in the South Horizon region. Gui Wuchang narrowed his eyes and a murderous look flashed across his eyes. It turned out that the Dark World's prodigies and the South Horizon region's prodigies would collect information about each other's prodigies. For example, Yi Guchen recognized them at a glance. They were Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong of the 13 Gangsters. The Dark World naturally had some information about the South Horizon region's prodigies. If Jun Xiaoyao, Chu Xuanzhen, Huang Qianqiu, and the others were here, they would know who they were at a glance. However, Yi Guchen was different. What really made him famous in the South Horizon region was the Battle of the Sacred Emperor Realm. It was also after the Battle of the Sacred Emperor Realm that Yi Guchen was named Sword Young Master, one of the top 10 young masters. Counting the time, it had only been a little more than 20 days. It was for this reason that Yi Guchen's information was not known by the Dark World's prodigies. At least, most of the Dark World's prodigies did not know. Hee, so you are a nobody. Yang Hong was completely relieved. At this moment, Yi Guchen's aura was restrained, and he did not look like a prodigy. He was also not like Di Haoyan and Huang Qianqiu, who carried a shocking aura wherever he went. It was difficult for others to ignore him. Do you know who we are? Gui Wuchang's lips curled into a cold smile. The 13 Gangsters, Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong. Yi Guchen's tone was indifferent. He could tell from the two's attitude that the Dark World's prodigies did not seem to know that he was one of the top 10 young masters. In other words, Yi Guchen was now a nobody in the eyes of the Dark World's prodigies. He was like a cannon fodder. This was getting more interesting. Chapter 1383. Oh, I didn't expect you to be so calm after knowing that we're the 13 Gangsters, said Yang Hong. I'm not the one who should be nervous, said Yi Guchen. Well, what do you mean? Yang Hong raised his brows. Gui Wuchang shook his head. Don't talk nonsense. Just kill him. No matter how small a mosquito is, it's still meat. You can get 10 points, said Gui Wuchang coldly. The rules of the Dark World and the Nantian region were similar. Killing an ordinary prodigy was worth 10 points. Killing a dangerous class prodigy was worth 1,000 points. Killing an extremely dangerous class prodigy was worth 10,000 points. Killing a forbidden prodigy was worth 100,000 points. In the eyes of Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong, Yi Guchen was at most an ordinary prodigy. Even if they killed him, they would only get 10 points. Yi Guchen's lips curled into a smile. The 13 Gangsters are dangerous class prodigies. I should be able to get 2,000 points after killing the two of you. Hearing Yi Guchen's words, Yang Hong and Gui Wuchang were stunned. They thought that there was something wrong with their ears. You're courting death. Gui Wuchang did not say anything else. His strength of the 6th layer of the divine dwelling stage erupted. He stretched out his hand, and a pitch-black chain broke through the wind. Its tip was as sharp as a dagger, and it emitted a cold light. When Yi Guchen saw this, he immediately raised his hand and grabbed the black chain. Are you courting death? Seeing Yi Guchen's action, Gui Wuchang's pale face revealed a sneer. However, before the mocking smile could spread from the corners of his mouth, he saw an unbelievable scene. Yi Guchen caught his chain with his bare hands. Then his arm suddenly shook, and a 9-colored thunderbolt burst out, rushing along the chain toward Gui Wuchang. Gui Wuchang's face turned pale, and he hurriedly protected his body with his qi. Boom! There was a thunderous explosion, and Gui Wuchang was sent flying. His entire arm was charred black, and his flesh was torn open by the 9-colored thunderbolt. Yang Hong was completely dumbfounded. This was because the aura that Yi Guchen exuded had reached the 7th layer of the divine dwelling realm in that instant. Who are you? Yang Hong's face suddenly changed. If he was really a very famous 7th level divine dwelling heaven pride, it was impossible for the dark world not to know. You're just a dead man. Why do you need to know my name? Yi Guchen said coldly and flicked his wrist. The 9-dragon thunder prison sword fell into his hand. Its blade was cold, and it was bursting with the power of lightning. Using the divine movement secret technique, he appeared in front of Yang Hong in a flash. The first move of the divine sword thunder controlling art, myriad thunder transformations, was performed. Tens of thousands of sword rays and lightning bolts burst out from the blade like a surging tide of thunder. Yang Hong hurriedly raised his spear to block, fully erupting his 6th-layer divine dwelling cultivation. But with just one strike, Yang Hong was sent flying, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Both Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong were aghast, looking at Yi Guchen as if they had seen a ghost. They were all part of the 13 gangsters. Even among the sky prides of the dark world, they were considered top-notch. But now, in the face of this black-robed youth, they felt a deep sense of despair and powerlessness. Damn it, no wonder he can walk around the Western Island without fear. It turns out that he is so powerful. I misjudged him. Yang Hong's face was full of dark clouds. Gui Wuchang's face, which was already pale, was now as white as paper. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that when he came to Sky Burial Island, the top heaven pride of their force had once said, in the South Horizon region, there seemed to be a newly risen Sword Dao heaven pride. He was extremely powerful and had displayed his skills in the sacred imperial world. And that heaven pride had once seriously injured the top heaven pride of the South Horizon region, Di Haotian. Thinking of this, Gui Wuchang looked at Yi Guchen again. Dressed in a black robe and using a sword as a weapon, he completely matched the description of that heaven pride. Are you Yi Guchen? Gui Wuchang couldn't help but ask. Oh, it seems that the dark world is not completely unaware of my news. Yi Guchen raised his eyebrows slightly, his face indifferent. These words were undoubtedly an acknowledgement of his identity. What? You're one of the 10 great young masters of the South Horizon region, soared young master Yi Guchen, who once seriously injured a forbidden-level heaven pride? When Yang Hong heard Yi Guchen admit his identity, he felt dizzy, as if the sky was about to collapse. A heaven pride of the 10 great young masters of the South Horizon region was someone that only the 7 bully lords could contend with. The 13 gangsters could contend with the heaven prides on the Dragon Phoenix list of the South Horizon region, but it was difficult for them to contend with the 10 great young masters. Not to mention, the person in front of them was not just an ordinary 10 great young master. He was a terrifying existence that had once seriously injured Di Haotian. Even in the dark world, Di Haotian was quite famous. Almost all the heaven prides in the dark world knew him. Di Haotian was almost the top heaven pride of the South Horizon region. The young man in front of them, who could seriously injure Di Haotian, had the combat strength to injure a forbidden-level heaven pride. This was what made Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong tremble in fear. They were not like the 4 bully lords or the 7 bully lords. Not to mention the forbidden-level war and calamity twin stars. Let's go! Without the slightest hesitation, the 2 heaven prides, Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong, turned around and fled in different directions. Do you think you can escape? Yi Guchen would not let them go. Yi Guchen raised his sword, and vast thunderbolts surged out. It was the 3rd move, Divine Annihilation Heavenly Punishment. Rumble! The power of the 9-dragon thunder prison, coupled with the 9-colored profound thunder and the divine sword thunder control technique, poured out in all directions. Both Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong were affected. They turned around to block, but their bodies shook violently and they spat out a large mouthful of blood again. Yi Guchen continued to move forward with his sword. Sacred Sword Trifecta, Universal Annihilation. The Qianyang Absolute Sword and the Kuan-Yu Absolute Sword merged into one, turning into a sword ray that could cut through heaven and earth. Yang Hongchuan had no strength to resist and was cut in half with a scream. Then, Yi Guchen turned around and attacked Gui Wuchang again. Yi Guchen, there are people from the Rakshasa sect among the 4 great leaders and the 7 bully lords. If you dare to kill me, you will not be able to walk out of Burial Sky Island. Gui Wuchang let out a sharp scream. Ridiculous, there are too many people who use this to threaten me. Yi Guchen did not hesitate at all and killed Gui Wuchang directly. He took out a crystal from his origin ring. This crystal had many functions, and every South Sky region Heaven Prides had one. Not only could it be used to look at the map of Burial Sky Island, but it could also be used to calculate the score. Soon, Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong's names appeared in the crystal. Then, the words 2,000 points appeared. Not bad. Yi Guchen nodded slightly and took out more than 100 demon soul crystals from Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong's corpses. The demon soul crystals were obtained from the Yin demon god that the two of them had killed. Now, Yi Guchen had benefited from them. As for the other things, Yi Guchen was not interested. Is the Rakshasa sect a force in the dark world? Yi Guchen muttered to himself. Little did he know that the moment he killed Gui Wuchang. In another part of the western island, a figure shrouded in a blood-red robe seemed to have sensed something. Gui Wuchang is dead. Chapter 1384. The figure, who was shrouded in a blood-red robe, had a very powerful aura. He had reached the 7th level of the divine dwelling realm. The blood-red aura around him seemed to have turned into numerous blood snakes that twined around him. There were several other figures beside him, who were also very powerful. They were all top Heaven Prides of the Dark World. What's wrong, Shui Yunzi? A Heaven Pride asked. Nothing, Gui Wuchang of the Luosha sect is dead, the Heaven Pride named Shui Yunzi said in an extremely indifferent tone. Oh, although Gui Wuchang's strength is not top-notch, he is still one of the 13 gangsters. How did he die so quickly? The other Heaven Prides of the Dark World were all surprised. The burial island had only been opened for a few days. It was reasonable to say that only some cannon fodder would die. The 13 gangsters were not cannon fodder. I'm not sure, but he should have been killed by a Heaven Pride of the South Horizon region, and that Heaven Pride of the South Horizon region is on the West Island. Shui Yunzi narrowed his eyes, which were filled with blood-red light. Interesting. He killed a Heaven Pride of the Dark World openly on the West Island, which is occupied by our Dark World. Isn't he afraid that he won't be able to leave the West Island? The other Heaven Prides of the Dark World said in a playful tone. Shui Yunzi said coldly, it's very simple. That Heaven Pride of the South Horizon region is either a fool or... He is very confident in his strength. Even on the West Island, he is not afraid of being surrounded by the Heaven Prides of the Dark World. Interesting. Is that Heaven Pride of the South Horizon region Di Haoyan or one of the 4 emperors? Hearing Shui Yunzi's words, the surrounding Heaven Prides of the Dark World burst into laughter. Forget it, let's take action. Although Gui Wuchang's death is not a big deal, we still have to get back at him. Shui Yunzi slowly raised his hand. Blood-red qi twined around his wrist like a snake. Shui Yunzi was one of the 7 overlords of the Dark World. On the other side, after killing Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong, Yi Guchen continued to fly in the direction of the South Island. What kind of existence is the Luosha sect? Yi Guchen thought as he walked. His understanding of the Dark World was limited to what Confuzi had said. The entire world of darkness was made up of 7 Saint Emperor worlds. The reason why it was called the Dark World was not because these 7 Saint Emperor's worlds were especially dark and cruel, but because they were on the opposite side of the South Horizon region. Moreover, the Dark World had always been hostile to the South Horizon region, which was why they had such a name. However, although Yiguchen was not clear about the Rakshasa sect situation, he could also figure out that the Rakshasa sect must be an extremely powerful force in the dark world. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to cultivate heaven's favorites like the 4 little giants and the 7 little conquerors. Before Ge Wuchang died, he had said that there were people from the Luosha sect among the 4 tyrants and 7 tyrants. I wonder if Xue is here. Is she and the master of the bloodthirsty tower, Xue Yiqing, also from a certain power in the dark world? Is Xue one of the twin stars of war and calamity? Yiguchen had a lot of doubts in his heart. However, with Xue's heaven-weeping witch physique, she should at least be a heaven's chosen on the same level as the Big Four. Just as Yiguchen's mind was filled with various thoughts, a sharp screeching sound suddenly pulled him back to reality. A group of strangely shaped creatures appeared in front of him. They were shaped like squid or octopus, completely black and suspended in the air. Their sharp tentacles were barbed, and their ring-shaped mouthparts were also covered with white bone spikes. Such terrifying creatures were definitely not seen in the South Horizon region. These are the Neo-Demons? Yiguchen's mind focused slightly. On Sky Burial Island, Neo-Demons were the most common creatures of the Dark World, just like the Een Demon God. Moreover, they could produce demon soul crystals just like the Een Demon God. These Neo-Demons could also condense something called the soul nurturing source in their bodies. Just like the demon soul crystals, this soul nurturing source was extremely helpful in shaping the soul and soul palace. However, unlike the Een Demon God, Neo-Demons had a temperament, which was to form in groups. On Sky Burial Island, there was a terrifying disaster called the Neo-Demon Tide. If one was caught in such a tide of Neo-Demons, not to mention the ordinary prodigies, even the prodigies on the Dragon Phoenix list or the 10 Great Childs would be in danger of death. Right now, there were about 40 to 50 Neo-Demons in front of him. To Yiguchen, they were not much of a threat. Yiguchen did not hesitate and directly attacked. He wiped the blade of the 9-Dragon Thunder Prison with one hand, and the colorful Chaos Divine Fire burned. The dozens of Neo-Demons also discovered Yiguchen. They immediately let out sharp screeches and charged at Yiguchen. Barbed sharp tentacles pierced through the air, enough to pierce through spiritual inscriptions. Yiguchen's sword swept out, and the Chaos Divine Fire spread out. The Neo-Demons immediately let out painful screeches. The power of lightning and fire was extremely effective against creatures like the Een Demon God and Neo-Demons. In less than 15 minutes, the dozens of Neo-Demons had all turned into charred corpses. As for Yiguchen, he began to dissect the corpses of the Neo-Demons to produce soul-nourishing essences. As long as I collect enough demon soul crystals and soul-nourishing source, I will have a greater chance of breaking through to the honorable realm, Yiguchen muttered. At that moment, the screeches of Neo-Demons came from the front. Yiguchen raised his eyebrows and muttered to himself, as expected, there are more than a few dozen Neo-Demons. His figure flashed, and he went forward cautiously. At a glance, there were more than 1,000 Neo-Demons surrounding a figure. The chubby, rotund figure was currently using one divine weapon after another to block the attacks of the Neo-Demons. That person is Shimen Fugue? Yiguchen raised his eyebrows. Shimen Fugue, the pride of the Shimen family, had the noble star fate. He was known as the Fugue Young Master, and could be considered a weirdo among the 10 Great Childs. Shimen Fugue's battle strength was near the bottom, but his luck was extremely good, and he had many weapons that increased his strength. Didn't they say that Shimen Fugue's luck was good? Why is he in danger now? Yiguchen shook his head slightly. He never believed in fate or luck. He only believed in the sword in his hand. Furthermore, Yiguchen and Shimen Fugue did not know each other, so he had no reason to help. At that moment, Shimen Fugue seemed to have sensed something, and his gaze turned towards Yiguchen. When he saw Yiguchen, Shimen Fugue's eyes lit up with joy, and he suddenly shouted, "Could it be Sword Young Master Yiguchen? Please help me." Yiguchen shook his head slightly and prepared to retreat. Shimen Fugue saw Yiguchen's actions, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. He shouted again, "Brother Yi, please wait." I found a Neo-Demon lair. If Brother Yi helps me, I can take you there. You will definitely gain something. Shimin Fugue's words made Yi Guchen stop in his tracks. A look of interest appeared in his eyes. Chapter 1385. Originally, Yi Guchen didn't want to meddle in other people's business. However, Shimin Fugue's words gave Yi Guchen an idea. If he could really find a Neo-Demon lair, he might reap great rewards. However, Yi Guchen wasn't naive. He said, "How can I believe that you're telling the truth?" Shimin Fugue looked harmless and didn't seem like a bad person. However, Yi Guchen wasn't the kind of person to judge a person by their appearance. Shimin Fugue was so anxious that his forehead was covered in sweat. He thought for a moment, then took out 7 or 8 tribulation weapons from his origin ring. Even Yi Guchen was slightly surprised by the level of heroism he displayed. These tribulation weapons should be enough. Brother Yi, you should know that I'm extremely lucky. It's not impossible for me to find a Neo-Demon lair. You're lucky. Aren't you also trapped by Neo-Demons? Yi Guchen smiled. Yes, but I ran into. This proves that my luck is still good. Shimin Fugue defended himself against the attacks of the Neo-Demons as he explained. Hearing this explanation, Yi Guchen felt like he couldn't refute it. Forget it. There's no need to use them as collateral. I'm sure you don't want to bear the consequences of deceiving me. Yi Guchen smiled, but that smile carried a deeper meaning. If Shimin Fugue was deceiving him, Yi Guchen would definitely make him pay the price. Of course. Shimin Fugue nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Yi Guchen brandished his sword. The primal chaos divine flame spread out, accompanied by lightning and sword radiance. The power of the primal chaos divine flame was unimaginable. Furthermore, this flame was innately effective against demon gods, neo-demons, and other creatures of the dark world. Coupled with Yi Guchen's own strength, the thousands of neo-demons were quickly buried in the sea of fire. Brother Yi is really strong. No wonder you could kill Gu Xiaoyang. Seeing that the crisis was over, Shimin Fugue flattered. Yi Guchen didn't mind Shimin Fugue's flattery. Instead, he began to collect the soul-nourishing essences from the neo-demons. After he was done, Yi Guchen looked at Shimin Fugue and said, "Can you take me to the neo-demon nest now?" "Of course. Why would I lie to you, Brother Yi?" Now in the West Island, the geniuses of the South Horizon region should unite. Shimin Fugue nodded repeatedly. Yi Guchen glanced at Shimin Fugue. Shimin Fugue's fighting strength and temperament were at the bottom of the 10 great young masters. However, he possessed the noble star's fate. His destiny was very strong, and he had all kinds of divine weapons and treasures on him. Therefore, Shimin Fugue absolutely could not be underestimated. At the critical moment, his battle strength would be very strong. Then let's go. If what you said is true, I can take you away from the West Island, Yi Guchen said. Thank you, thank you. I don't want to be trapped in the West Island alone. No matter how lucky I am, I will probably be surrounded and killed by the geniuses of the dark world. Shimin Fugue hurriedly nodded in agreement. Then, Shimin Fugue led Yi Guchen to the Neo-Demon nest. On the way, Shimin Fugue kept talking and asked Yi Guchen about Yizangyue. Brother Yi, I heard that Fairy Yizangyue is close to you. She even helped you in the Holy Imperial World. Brother Yi, what is your relationship with Fairy Yizangyue? Fairy Yizangyue has never been friendly to any man. Shimin Fugue kept blabbering, which annoyed Yi Guchen to no end. I have nothing to do with Yizangyue, Yi Guchen said lightly. Is that so? That's good. Shimin Fugue breathed a sigh of relief. Yizangyue was the goddess in his heart, the object of his pursuit. Seeing this, Yi Guchen secretly shook his head. He indeed had nothing to do with Yizangyue, but it was hard to say if Dugu was seeking a demon. But from another perspective, wasn't Dugu seeking a demon the same as Yi Guchen? The original body and the doppelganger were the same person. Yi Guchen naturally wouldn't tell this secret to Shimin Fugue. After about an hour, Shimin Fugue led Yi Guchen to a mountain valley and stopped. In front of them was a pitch-black valley. There seemed to be a figure flashing in the valley. Someone beat us to it? Shimin Fugue's chubby cheeks changed slightly. Yiguchen looked over. He saw a group of people fighting with some neo-demons in front of the cave. There were about 100 people in the group. The leader was a man in a black robe and holding a blood sword. His aura had reached the 8th level of the divine dwelling realm, which was stronger than Gui Wuchang and Yang Hong that Yiguchen had encountered before. "Hey, is that man Qin Shang of the 7 Bully Lords?" Yiguchen murmured. He had some information about the heaven prides of the dark world. He naturally knew about the 7 Bully Lords. Qin Shang had a heavenly tribulation divine weapon, the bloodthirsty sword, and was extremely powerful. However, Qin Shang was not the only one. Yiguchen also saw 3 heaven prides, all of whom were part of the 13 tycoons. Other than that, the other heaven prides were just ordinary. Fortunately, there aren't any heaven prides at the level of the 4 tycoons. Otherwise, it would be troublesome, Yiguchen murmured. He didn't have to be afraid of the 7 Bully Lords at all. Only the 4 tycoons were comparable to the 4 emperors. Yiguchen wasn't afraid of them, but it would be difficult to finish the battle quickly. And in a place like the West Island, if he couldn't finish off his opponent quickly and was discovered by the heaven prides of the dark world, the consequences would be unimaginable. "What should we do next?" Shimen Fugue asked. "When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Let's wait quietly." Yiguchen smiled. On the other side, Qin Shang was leading a group of heaven prides of the dark world to fight against the neo-demons. "Hurry up. There may be a soul-cultivating pool in this neo-demon lair. When you get the soul-cultivating pool, you may all advance to the Celestial Palace supremacy," Qin Shang said. Hearing his words, the other heaven prides of the dark world also had a trace of excitement in their eyes. In fact, their main reason for coming to the Burial Island was not to fight against the heaven prides of the South Horizon region. Instead, they were looking for an opportunity to break through to the supremacy realm. The soul-cultivating pool in this neo-demon lair was undoubtedly one of the best opportunities to help them break through to the supremacy realm. Blood Fiend 13 Swords. Qin Shang held the bloodthirsty sword in his hand and instantly slashed out 13 blood-red sword rays, tearing apart the neo-demons in front of him. As one of the 7 Bully Lords, his strength was beyond doubt. Beside him, the 3 heaven prides of the 13 tycoons also attacked with all their might to kill the neo-demons. After an hour of fighting, they had finally exterminated the majority of the neo-demons. Of course, Qin Shang and the others had also consumed a lot of energy. However, just as they were about to enter the neo-demon lair directly, a sharp screeching sound suddenly rang out. "That's..." Qin Shang's expression changed abruptly. Chapter 1386. Within the Neo-Demon lair, an incomparably huge Neo-Demon appeared. This Neo-Demon was at least 10 times larger than the average Neo-Demon. Furthermore, it was different from the pitch-black Neo-Demons. This Neo-Demon was covered with a hard, pitch-black exoskeleton. It looked almost like an insect as it floated in the air, looking both mysterious and ferocious. It was extremely frightening. "It's a Neo-Demon King." Qin Shang's expression changed. Neo-demons lived in groups. In every group of neo-demons, there was a neo-demon king who was extremely powerful and led the entire group. The strength of a neo-demon king was undoubtedly close to the level of a celestial palace supremacy. "Everyone, attack together and kill this neo-demon king." Qin Shang shouted and attacked directly. The blood-red sword light tore through the sky and earth. However, when the sword light landed on the body of the Neo-Demon King, it was blocked by its black exoskeleton and only left a shallow mark. The 3 prodigies of the 13 gangsters, as well as the other prodigies of the dark world, also attacked together. In an instant, all kinds of moves were like rain, turning into a torrent that swept towards the Neo-Demon King. A great battle broke out. The prodigies of the dark world were not weak. As for the Neo-Demon King, its sharp barbed tentacles spread out, piercing through one of the prodigies of the dark world and sucking them dry. In the dark, Yiguchen and Shimen Fugue looked at the Neo-Demon King and were speechless. Fortunately, the prodigies of the dark world are at the front. Otherwise, it would be extremely difficult for the two of us to enter the Neo-Demon lair, Shimin Fugue said with a sigh. Is this also because of your luck? Yiguchen asked. Of course. Shimin Fugue beamed with joy. He was obviously very confident in his heavenly noble fate. On the other side, the battle continued. After a full 2 hours, the prodigies of the Dark World finally killed the Neo-Demon King. The prodigies of the Dark World also suffered heavy casualties. About half of the 100 prodigies were dead. Although Qin Shang and the other 3 geniuses of the 13 gangsters did not die, they had consumed a lot of energy and were injured. That bastard is finally dead, said Qin Shang. Let's enter the Neo-Demon nest and get the soul cultivation pool. Hearing Qin Shang's words, the remaining Dark World geniuses all looked excited. After countless trials and tribulations, he had slain numerous Neo-Demons, including Neo-Demon Kings. They could finally enjoy the fruits of their victory. However, just as they were about to enter the nest, a calm voice suddenly sounded. I have to thank you for your help. However, let me handle the rest. Hearing this voice, the faces of Qin Shang and the others suddenly froze, and they turned their heads abruptly. 2 figures slowly walked out of the valley behind them. One of them was a handsome young man in a black robe, and the other was a chubby man. It was Yi Guchen and Shimin Fugue. You are a heaven's pride of the South Horizon region? Qin Shang raised his eyebrows. He had thought that it was the heavenly talents from the Dark World who wanted to take advantage of him. But he didn't expect it to be a genius from the South Horizon region. Qin Shang first glanced at Yi Guchen and frowned slightly. There was no detailed information about Yi Guchen in their information. However, when he turned his gaze to Shimin Fugue, he sneered. So it's young Master Fugue, one of the top 10 young masters of the South Horizon region, Shimin Fugue. Shimin Fugue's appearance was too distinctive. Almost everyone in the Dark World recognized him. Since you know it's me, then you should know that you're finished today. Shimin Fugue raised his head slightly, looking fearless. Hearing Shimin Fugue's words, Qin Shang couldn't help but shake his head and laugh as if he had heard the biggest joke in the world. Ha, ridiculous. I'm one of the 7 bully lords, while you are one of the top 10 young masters, but you're the weakest among them. You're just lucky. Qin Shang was extremely disdainful of Shimin Fugue. In his opinion, how could a person who relied on luck be qualified to stand shoulder to shoulder with him? Sometimes, luck is also a part of strength, Shimin Fugue said calmly. With Yi Guchen by his side, he felt incomparably at ease. I heard that you have a lot of treasures on you. You're simply a moving treasury. Since I happen to come across you, then I, Qin Shang, won't be disrespectful. Qin Shang stared at Shimin Fugue as if he was staring at a piece of fat meat on a chopping board. I'm right here. Come over if you have the guts. Shimin Fugue's face was asking for a beating as he arrogantly hooked his pinky at Qin Shang. You're courting death. Qin Shang's face was cold. He had expended some energy when dealing with the Neo-Demon King. However, he knew that it would be easy for him to deal with Shimin Fugue, who was the weakest among the top 10 young masters. Blood Fiend 13 Swords. Qin Shang held the bloodthirsty sword in his hand, and 13 sword rays shot out at the same time. However, Shimin Fugue didn't move. Are you scared, silly? Qin Shang sneered. This fool still doesn't know who is standing beside me. Shimin Fugue thought proudly. However, to his surprise, Yi Guchen didn't intend to make a move. Brother Yi, Shimin Fugue was stunned. I want 80% of the resources in the Neo-Demon lair, Yi Guchen said calmly. This. Shimin Fugue was stunned. He didn't expect Yi Guchen to bargain at this juncture. They had heard that there might be a soul-cultivating pond in the Neo-Demon lair. Originally, Shimin Fugue wanted to have a 50-50 split with Yi Guchen. But now Yi Guchen was asking for 80%. If it were any other situation, Shimin Fugue would never agree. However, the sword rays were about to reach his head. Shimin Fugue was anxious. It wasn't that he didn't have a chance against Qin Shang, but it would take a long time. He might not be able to defeat Qin Shang, let alone kill him. In this way, Shimon Fuguei couldn't get the opportunity in the Neo-Demon lair by himself. With your luck, you will get many opportunities in the future. What's the harm in contributing a little now? Besides, I can take care of Qin Shang, Yiguchen said calmly. He wasn't Shimon Fuguei's bodyguard. He had to take advantage of the situation. It was not easy to get such an opportunity. Yiguchen was not a pedantic person. Maybe he could get more opportunities by relying on Shimon Fuguei in the future. Okay, brother Yi, you win. I agree, Shimon Fuguei said with a pained expression. It was as if he was cutting his own flesh. Just as Shimon Fuguei's voice fell, Yiguchen's wrist shook. The sword rays swept through the air and collided with Qin Shang's bloody sword rays. After a few clangs, Qin Shang's sword rays were blocked. You are... Seeing that his attack was blocked, Qin Shang's eyes narrowed. The person who will kill you. Yiguchen held the 9-dragon thunder prison and pointed his sword at Qin Shang. Chapter 1387. You want to kill me? Qin Shang was slightly stunned and didn't react for a moment. He even suspected that he had misheard. Who was he? One of the 7 overlords of the Dark World. He was second only to the War and Calamity twin stars and the 4 overlords. Even in the Dark World, he was a famous genius. Not to mention that he was backed by the Yellow Spring sect, one of the 7 major forces of the Dark World. It was a top force like the Rakshasa sect. Not many people in the younger generation of the Dark World dared to say that they could kill him. Now, a genius from the South Horizon region dared to say that he could kill him? Shimon Fuguei is one of the top 10 young masters. Or you? How dare you say that you want to kill me? How ridiculous! Qin Shang sneered. Except for a few well-informed geniuses from the Dark World who knew that a powerful sword young master had appeared in the South Horizon region, most of the geniuses from the Dark World didn't know Yiguchen's strength. They didn't even know that there was a genius like Yiguchen. Qin Shang was one of them. It's hard to say if I can kill the War and Calamity twin stars or the 4 overlords, but killing you shouldn't be too difficult. Yiguchen's tone was indifferent. You're courting death. Qin Shang didn't say anything else and directly attacked with his sword. He held the bloodthirsty sword in his hand and slashed out a terrifying sword light. Brother Shimon, I'll leave the rest of the geniuses to you, Yiguchen said to Shimon Fuguei. In addition to Qin Shang, there were 3 geniuses at the level of the 13 overlords and some cannon fodder. However, they had already expended a lot of energy when dealing with the Neo-Demon King, so it wasn't too difficult to deal with them. No matter how weak Shimon Fuguei was, he was still one of the top 10 young masters. It was impossible that he couldn't even deal with these people. Don't worry, leave it to me. Shimon Fuguei's origin ring flickered on his fat finger. All kinds of divine weapons and Dharma treasures appeared, dazzling everyone. Shimon Fuguei didn't have many things, but he had so many divine weapons and Dharma treasures that he could kill people. He could still deal with the 13 overlords. On the other side, Yiguchen's 9-dragon thunder prison collided with Qin Shang's move. The sound of metal clashing burst out, and the aura Qi young Yiguchen's cultivation level was also revealed at this moment. 7th layer of the divine dwelling, who exactly are you? As soon as they exchanged blows, Yiguchen's cultivation realm gave Qin Shang a shock. At this realm, he was at least at the level of the South Horizon region's Dragon Phoenix list. Logically speaking, it was impossible for Qin Shang not to know. When you die, I will tell you. Yiguchen used the 3 arts of the Holy Sword. The sword lights of the Absolute Sun Sword and the Absolute Starbreaker Sword swept out and fused together, turning into a blazing torrent of sword chi. It was the Star Sun flowing fire. Feeling the terrifying fluctuation of this sword force, Qin Shang completely restrained his contempt. He was not a fool. How could he not see that although Yiguchen did not have much information in the Dark World, with such strength, he was definitely not a nobody. Blood Demon Sky Slashing Sword, Mad Demon Sky Splitting Sword. Qin Shang also activated the power of the divine dwelling in his body. Vast essential chi surged, and the bloodthirsty sword emitted a dazzling blood-red light. A blood-red sword light dozens of feet long tore through the air as if it could break open space. The collision of the two sword moves was like a collision of two great stars. Powerful fluctuations surged in all directions, causing the surrounding earth to crack. Yiguchen was only pushed back 2 or 3 steps. But Qin Shang spat out a small mouthful of blood, and his figure was pushed back hundreds of feet. The other geniuses from the Dark World were dumbfounded when they saw this. Qin Shang, one of the 7 bully lords, was at a disadvantage in one move. This was simply unbelievable to the Dark World Heaven Prides. Hee, now you know how powerful Brother Yi is. Shimon Fugue smiled evilly, the fat on his face trembling slightly. Originally, he was a little nervous about wandering alone in the Western Island. In the end, his luck really helped him, and he met Yiguchen. Shimon Fugue felt a sense of security beside Yiguchen. He finally understood why so many women were willing to surround Yiguchen. Even a man like him could feel this sense of security. Let me take care of you, small fries. Shimon Fugue turned to deal with the 13 gangsters and other Heaven Prides. On the other side, Qin Shang's eyes were also filled with disbelief. He gritted his teeth and attacked again, injecting his essential qi into the bloodthirsty sword. Blood blade piercing the sky. The bloodthirsty sword swept across the sky, and the sharp sword light tore through the air, stabbing directly at Yiguchen. Yiguchen changed his moves again, performing the Qianyang Sword of Extinction and the Kuan-Yu Sword of Extinction. The Qian Kuan Extermination burst forth, and a vast sword light swept across the sky with a destructive aura. Boom! When the sword light collided, the surrounding earth and rocks cracked, and debris flew into the sky. Under such a powerful collision, Qin Shang's figure was pushed back again, and he coughed up blood. On the other hand, Yiguchen was unscathed. How is this possible? Even if you are one of the 10 great young masters, you can't be so powerful. Qin Shang exclaimed, unable to believe it. Logically speaking, the 7 bully lords and the 10 great young masters should be at the same level. Of course, there were strong and weak among the 10 great young masters. For example, Chu Xuanzhen and Shimon Fugue's combat strength were not on the same level. Of course, there were strong and weak among the 7 bully lords. However, Qin Shang's combat strength was in the middle of the 7 bully lords, and he was not at the bottom. That was why he was shocked. I said that the outcome might not be certain when dealing with the War and Calamity Twin Stars or the 4 overlords, but it shouldn't be too difficult to deal with the 7 bully lords. Yiguchen smiled faintly. It's not that simple. You will pay the price for underestimating the 7 bully lords. As Qin Shang spoke, his eyes suddenly turned blood red, and a blood-colored qi burst out from his body. The bloodthirsty sword also seemed to vibrate, emitting a bloodthirsty desire. What an evil sword! Yiguchen frowned. It was obvious that Qin Shang was able to become one of the 7 overlords largely because his bloodthirsty sword was an evil weapon. However, Yiguchen was not afraid at all. Because he had the 9-colored Dark Thunder and Chaos Divine Fire, which could suppress all kinds of evil and cold forces. Devouring evil slash. Qin Shang exerted all his strength, and the sword burst out. In an instant, there seemed to be blood-colored vengeful spirits that burst out from the bloodthirsty sword. Those vengeful spirits were the martial artists who had died under the bloodthirsty sword. Even their souls were imprisoned and devoured by the bloodthirsty sword, and they became like evil spirits. This move not only contained the power of the sword itself, but also the power of countless vengeful spirits. It was obvious that this was Qin Shang's trump card. Die! Qin Shang's sword swept over, and the world seemed to be filled with a gloomy wind, which was very scary. He was extremely confident in this move of his. Yiguchen's expression did not change. He directly activated the sword domain of the Peerless Thunder Sword Dao, Heaven's Punishment Thunder Prison. Together with the ultimate move of the Godly Sword Lightning Controlling Art, Heaven's Punishment. In an instant, thunder and lightning shook the world, and vast astral lightning surged. Chapter 1388. The power of thunder was extremely effective against all kinds of demons and evil beings. It was also a great counter to the negative energies of all kinds of gloomy, cold, and bloody fiendish energies. Therefore, when Iguchin used the sword realm of the peerless thunder sword principle, the bloodthirsty sword suddenly let out a trembling sound, as if it had encountered its natural enemy, and could not help but tremble. The power of the devouring evil slash had also decreased by at least 30%. As for those vengeful spirits, they immediately let out a sharp cry as soon as they encountered the 9-colored profound thunder and turned into green smoke in the surging thunder. Boom! There was a violent explosion as the two ultimate moves collided and burst out a ring-shaped ripple of sword chi. The surrounding Shimenfugue and the Dark World's geniuses were all affected and were shaken away. In the violent collision, a figure spat out a large mouthful of blood and flew out. It was Qin Shang. His whole body was charred by the thunder and lightning. His clothes were torn, his chin was full of blood, and his arms were also bleeding. The bloodthirsty sword in his hand seemed to have been severely damaged, and cracks spread out on the sword. Logically speaking, a heavenly tribulation divine weapon should not be so easily broken. However, the 9-colored profound thunder, the 9-dragon thunder prison, and the power of the thunder sword principle. The restraint of the bloodthirsty sword was too great. This kind of attribute restraint was sometimes very fatal. Defeated, Qin Shang was defeated? Seeing this scene, the Dark World's geniuses felt cold all over and their hearts sank. One of the 7 bully lords, Qin Shang, actually lost to an unknown South Horizon region prodigy. Shimenfugue was not surprised. After all, Yiguchen was someone who could even kill young Master Xingyun, Gu Xiaoyang. Defeating a little bully was not a big deal. Who the hell are you? You can't be a nobody in the South Horizon region. Qin Shang coughed out a mouthful of blood and stared at Yiguchen. While he was angry, he was also shocked. How did such a powerful genius appear in the South Horizon region in this battle on Sky Burial Island? Qin Shang was also annoyed. Yiguchen's power was just enough to restrain him. Otherwise, even if Qin Shang had lost, he would not have lost so miserably and thoroughly. You guys haven't even heard of Sword Young Master Yiguchen's name? The world of darkness is truly ignorant. Before Yiguchen could say anything, Shimenfugue couldn't help but ask. If he wanted to leave West Island safely, he had to rely on Yiguchen. He could at least flatter him. Sword Young Master? Yiguchen? Qin Shang's eyes were filled with doubt at first. Then, as if he had suddenly thought of something, his eyes froze as he stared at Yiguchen. Could it be that you're one of the newly promoted 10 great young masters of the South Horizon region, Yiguchen? Waves surged in Qin Shang's heart. There was not much information about Yiguchen in the Dark World. Only a few well-informed people knew about him. He had also accidentally heard other heavenly legends from the Dark World mention him. Otherwise, Qin Shang would not have realized it. It is said that Yiguchen has amazing combat capability and has even killed the 10 great young masters of the same level. In this case, it is not impossible for him to kill me. Thinking of this, Qin Shang felt a chill in his heart, as if he had fallen into a cold lake in the dead of winter. Every pore on his body was emitting coldness. If you know it, then I'll let you die knowing it. Yiguchen said indifferently and directly launched an attack. Killing a heavenly legend at the level of the 7 bullies could also earn him 1,000 points. Go to hell. Yiguchen launched his most powerful moves. The Sword of Qianyang, the Sword of Moon, and the star-breaking Sword of Sword merged in the void and turned into a mighty torrent of sword chi. The combination of the 3 moves, the moon falling star sinking vast yang break. The sword chi was like a torrent, pushing forward all the way. This was not only a fatal attack for Qin Shang, but also for the 3 heavenly legends of the 13 gangsters and the other heavenly legends from the Dark World. Boom boom boom. Heaven and earth shook and the entire Neo-Demon lair seemed to be about to collapse. Shimenfugue stared blankly at the scene in front of him. His chubby cheeks froze and he looked a little funny. After the attack, a huge gully appeared on the spot and spread for hundreds of feet. Inside the ravine, broken corpses and splashes of blood could be seen everywhere. Qin Shang, who was in the center of the attack, had already become a corpse. Even the bloodthirsty sword was cracked and had lost its spirituality. In addition, the 3 heavenly legends of the 13 gangsters were also lying on the ground, all seriously injured. If they had not been exhausted by the Neo-Demon King, perhaps they would not have been so miserable. But now, they were like a few dead dogs. As for the rest of the Dark World, almost all of them were dead. Yiguchen stepped forward and, without hesitation, ended the lives of the 3 heavenly legends with 3 strikes. Together with Qin Shang, his points in the crystal had increased again and reached 6,000 points. It should be noted that the Sky Burial Island had only been opened for a few days. Ordinary heavenly legends of the South Horizon region might only have dozens or hundreds of points. Although I fell into the West Island of the heavenly legends of the Dark World, it's not a loss, Yiguchen murmured. Although the danger had increased, so had the rewards. Not to mention other things, just these 6,000 points were enough to make him one of the top geniuses in the South Horizon region. If he had fallen into the East Island or the South Island, which was controlled by the South Horizon region, he would definitely not have such a reward. Shimon Fugue walked over and said with a bitter look on his chubby face, "Brother Yi, you're too fierce. You didn't even leave me any soup." Shimon Fugue thought that he could also get a few thousand points, but he did not expect that Yiguchen would get all of them. "It's good enough that I can guarantee your safety. What else do you want?" Yiguchen said indifferently. He was not a free nanny, and he would not be so kind as to take Shimon Fugue away from the West Island. If he wanted to be protected, he had to pay a price. Shimon Fugue was speechless. His thick and fat fingers twisted together, looking like a resentful little wife. Yiguchen was also speechless. If it were not for the noble star, Shimon Fugue would not have been able to enter the ranks of the top 10 young masters. He was also considered a weirdo among the top 10 young masters. Okay, let's not talk about this. Let's explore the Neo-Demon Lair. Yiguchen waved his hand. Shimon Fugue heard this and perked up. Although he could only get 20% of the treasures in the Neo-Demon Lair, it was not bad. After all, Shimon Fugue did not do much and only provided some information. The rest was done by Yiguchen, so it was almost equivalent to a free meal. Shimon Fugue was not dissatisfied. Soon, they went deep into the Neo-Demon Lair. A strange smell filled the air. There were dozens of Neo-Demons in the lair, but they were all killed by Yiguchen's 9-colored thunder. Soon, they went deep into the Neo-Demon Lair's deepest cave. At a glance, both of them were slightly shocked. Chapter 1389. As far as the eye could see, in the depths of the Neo-Demon Lair, there was a pool of water. It was filled with the soul-cultivating source. The whole pool was filled with the soul-cultivating source. Ha, I'm rich. My luck is really good. Seeing the soul-cultivating pool, Shimon Fugue laughed and jumped 3 feet high. Shimon Fugue had been a little disappointed when he talked with Yiguchen about the 20-80 split. He thought his harvest might not be so big. But now, seeing the soul-cultivating pool, Shimon Fugue's disappointment was swept away. A 20-80 split. Even if he could only get 20% of the profits, the profit he would gain would still be shocking. Yiguchen was also slightly surprised. He did not expect that this Neo-Demon Lair would bring him such a pleasant surprise. Ha, Qin Shang and the others must be angry in the netherworld. They helped us in vain. Shimon Fugue laughed. There's no time to lose. Let's collect the soul-cultivating source. Yiguchen was calm and not overjoyed. They were still in the West Island and had just killed Qin Shang, one of the 7 bullies. Now, even if the heavenly legends of the Dark World in the West Island were slow, they should know that a powerful heavenly legend of the South Horizon region with unknown identity had appeared in the West Island. Therefore, Yiguchen planned to go to the South Island directly after collecting the soul-cultivating source and join Jian Jinghong and the other sword sons. Then Yiguchen and Shimon Fugue began to collect the soul-cultivating source. 20% of the source of the soul cultivation was enough to satisfy Shimon Fugue, but Yiguchen got 80%. It was not hard to imagine how great of an opportunity it was. just when the two of them almost swept the entire soul-cultivating pool clean. Yiguchen's eyes suddenly fell on the bottom of the pool. There was a pitch-black lump that looked like a beehive. What's this? Yiguchen stretched out his hand, and his genuine chi burst out and sucked the beehive block into his hand. Shimen Fugue also looked over, as if he was thinking about what it was. Yiguchen poured his true chi into it and tested it, but there was no movement. What the hell is this? Even Yiguchen was puzzled. This was the only thing at the bottom of the soul-nourishing pond. Even Yiguchen didn't believe that it was completely useless. This thing. Shimen Fugue's beady eyes revealed a suspicious look. What? Do you know what this is? Yiguchen asked. If my guess is correct, this should be a Neo-Demon Core, Shimen Fugue guessed. A Neo-Demon Core? What is that? What is it used for? Yiguchen continued to ask. The Neo-Demon Core is what the Neo-Demon King uses to control the Neo-Demon Horde. Brother Yi, try pouring your soul power into it, Shimen Fugue said. Yiguchen nodded slightly. The primal chaos sea of consciousness in his mind spun as his primal chaos soul force poured into the Neo-Demon Core. In an instant, strange soul shockwaves began to emanate from the Neo-Demon's core. These soul shockwaves had a special frequency. Yiguchen could vaguely sense that he could see all the Neo-Demons within a radius of 10 kilometers. As for the Neo-Demons, after sensing the soul shockwaves, they began to converge towards the Neo-Demon nest. Yiguchen immediately cut off the connection and stopped pouring his soul power into it. It really is a strange treasure. Yiguchen's eyes shone with a strange light. Just now, he had poured his true chi into it, but it had no effect. Now that he poured his soul power into it, the results were immediately apparent. Although this Neo-Demon Core wasn't a treasure that could help him cultivate or increase his cultivation base, in the special environment of Sky Burial Island, it was definitely a rare treasure. Thinking about it, with this Neo-Demon Core, Yiguchen could even control the Neo-Demon Horde. This ability was much more practical than any other treasure. Hee, Brother Yi, you can have your Neo-Demon Core. Shimen Fugue knew what was good for him. He gave it to Yiguchen. He had already made up his mind to hug Yiguchen's thigh tightly. Oh, you're quite generous. Yiguchen raised his eyebrows slightly. Heh, Brother Yi, said Shimen Fugue confidently. With my luck and your power, the two of us working together would be a force to be reckoned with. All of Sky Burial Island is our treasure trove of opportunities. Why would we care about a Neo-Demon Core? Hearing Shimen Fugue's words, Yiguchen was a little surprised. He didn't think that this seemingly silly fatty would be so astute. Alright, since that's the case, it would be impolite for me to refuse. Yiguchen didn't stand on ceremony with Shimen Fugue, and directly took the Neo-Demon Core. After a round of looting, the two walked out of the Neo-Demon nest. Our harvest this time was pretty good. Yiguchen laughed. Not only did they kill the Dark World's geniuses and gain points, but they also obtained a huge amount of soul-cultivating source and Neo-Demon Cores. It was definitely a bountiful harvest. Let's go. Yiguchen waved his hand and flew out with Shimen Fugue. On the other side, on a cliff in the West Island, a figure shrouded in a blood-red robe picked up a communication jade slip in front of him with a solemn expression. He was Shui Yunzi, one of the 7 overlords, the genius of the Rakshasa sect. Just now, he received news that 3 geniuses of the 13 gangsters had died. This was nothing to Shui Yunzi. However, the next news was what made Shui Yunzi's expression turn solemn. Qin Shang of the Acheron sect, one of the 7 overlords, had also died. Qin Shang is dead? Shui Yunzi was in disbelief. Qin Shang held the bloodthirsty sword in his hand. Even among the Dark World's geniuses, he was a formidable existence. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become one of the 7 overlords. But now, this infamous genius in the Dark World had died, which made Shui Yunzi extremely solemn. Because he was also one of the 7 overlords, he was not much more powerful than Qin Shang. Did the genius of the South Horizon region who killed Gui Wuchang do this? Shui Yunzi murmured. Since that person could kill Qin Shang, it meant that he also had the ability to kill Shui Yunzi. No, I originally wanted to go alone to kill that genius of the South Horizon region, but it seems that I can't. I need to contact the other geniuses of the West Island. Shui Yunzi looked cautious. He was not a fool. If even Qin Shang was dead, he would most likely die if he went alone. Let me think, who should I contact? The Calamity Star, one of the twin stars of war and calamity, is from the Acheron sect. Now that Qin Shang of the Acheron sect is dead, he probably won't sit back and watch. But the Calamity Star probably won't care about geniuses of this level. His target is Di Haotian of the South Horizon region and the geniuses of the Four Emperors. Who else is left? Shui Yunzi thought. Then he suddenly thought of a person. That person was a newly risen genius of the dark world. He was dressed in black and had a cold expression. His name was Mo Yi. Chapter 1390. Mo Yi was also a young prodigy who had risen to prominence in the dark world recently. His experience was quite legendary, and he did not rely on any forces. Alone, he had made a name for himself in the dark world and became one of the 7 overlords. This time, Mo Yi had also come to participate in the Battle of Burial Island. He did not fight for any forces and acted alone like a lone wolf. It's not easy to invite him, but this is the only way to kill that South Horizon region prodigy. Just him alone is not enough, I need to invite another one, Shui Yunzi murmured. He was very cautious and did not underestimate the South Horizon region prodigy whose identity was unknown. While Shui Yunzi was planning to kill Yi Guqin, at a certain border of the Western Island, several disciples of the Heavenly God Sword sect were walking, looking around and talking at the same time. Hey, have you heard that many disciples of the overlords have died in the past few days? Yeah, and those who died were from the Heavenly God Sword sect, Starry Sword Pavilion, and Dongfang family. What's going on? Is there a prodigy from the dark world who is targeting us? I'm not sure about that. The disciples of the Heavenly God Sword sect were talking. However, a black-robed figure suddenly appeared not far in front of them. The black-robed figure was tall and slender. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and he wore a metal mask on his face. He held a black long sword in his hand, and the tip of the sword was slanted to the ground. A cold and murderous aura spread out. For you. The disciples of the Heavenly God Sword sect came to their senses and were on guard. Everyone from the Heavenly God Sword sect should die. A hoarse and cold voice came out of the man's mouth with extreme killing intent and hatred. Are you the prodigy from the dark world who hunted down our forces these days? One of the disciples of the Heavenly God Sword sect exclaimed with some fear in his eyes. Die! The man attacked directly. The black sword swept across the sky and drew a cold sword ray. Blood splattered and screams echoed in the field. In just a short period of time, those Heavenly God Sword sect disciples were all beheaded. After killing these Heavenly God Sword sect disciples, the black-clothed figure stood in place and muttered, "Not enough, I haven't killed enough people." At this moment, the figure seemed to have sensed something and took out a black crystal. The function of the black crystal was similar to that of Yi Guqin's crystal. After entering Burial Sky Island, it was used as a tool to assist in reading the map. The black crystal also had the ability to transmit messages. You want me to participate in the encirclement and annihilation of a South Horizon region genius? Heh. The black-robed figure sneered and left in a flash. He was none other than Mo Yi, one of the 7 bully lords that Shui Yunzi had mentioned. After about 7 or 8 days, Yi Guqin and Shimen Fugui finally arrived at the edge of the West Island. Because of Shimen Fugui's Providence physique, they had discovered many opportunities along the way. However, due to time constraints, Yi Guqin did not investigate them one by one. Anyway, as long as Shimen Fugui was there was no lack of opportunities. Taking a step back, even without Shimen Fugui, it would not be particularly difficult to find an opportunity on Sky Burial Island. The most important thing now was to leave the West Island and go to the South Island to meet Jian Jinghong and the others. Therefore, Yi Guqin did not waste any time. Phew, we are finally leaving the West Island. Shimin Fugue wiped the sweat on his fat face and exhaled softly. Now is not the time to relax. Do you think they will let us leave safely after we killed so many Dark World geniuses? Yi Guchen sneered. Brother Yi, you mean? Shimin Fugue suddenly quivered, as if a basin of cold water had been poured on his heart. If I were the heavenly son of the Dark World, I would definitely try to kill an unidentified heavenly son at the border and keep him here forever after he killed so many people in my territory. Yi Guchen's words made Shimin Fugue's heart sink. He could become one of the top 10 young masters because of luck and the noble star fate. But in fact, he was a coward. Perhaps many geniuses on the Dragon Phoenix list had a better mentality than Shimin Fugue. Brother Yi, you know that they may intercept and kill us at the border. Why did you walk into the trap? Shimin Fugue asked hurriedly. Yi Guchen had already expected this, but he still went. Wasn't he walking into the trap? Oh, why should I avoid them? Those are all points, Yi Guchen chuckled. It was not easy to come across a good opportunity to earn points. How could Yi Guchen give it up? Shimin Fugue was stunned when he heard that. He did not expect that Yi Guchen did not have the slightest intention of escaping. Instead, he regarded those Dark World geniuses as prey. It was as if the prey that had been targeted by the hunter began to think about how to kill the hunter. What a ruthless man! Shimin Fugue was speechless. He admired Yi Guchen very much. Now he understood why so many people called Yi Guchen a lunatic. Because Yi Guchen was not only ruthless to his enemies, but also to himself. Ordinary people would not want to walk into the trap, but Yi Guchen did so. Not only did he want to survive the desperate situation, but he also wanted to kill the Dark World geniuses. It was the first time that Shimin Fugue had seen such a ruthless man. Well, if you don't dare, we can part ways here. I'll attract the attention of those heavenly legends from the Dark World. It shouldn't be a big problem for you to leave the West Island safely, Yi Guchen said calmly. Shimin Fugue's face showed a hint of struggle when he heard Yi Guchen's words. If he left Yi Guchen, he would be far away from danger, and there was a great chance that he could leave safely. But in this way, Shimin Fugue would definitely not have the possibility of cooperating with Yi Guchen in the future. Shimin Fugue was not stupid. On the contrary, he was very shrewd. After secretly gritting his teeth, Shimin Fugue said, "Forget it. I will risk everything. With my luck and Brother Ye's strength, we will definitely be able to turn the situation around." Shimin Fugue had put all his bets on Yi Guchen. Okay. Yi Guchen nodded slightly. He did not say anything, nor did he make any promises. But the word okay represented everything. After making the decision, Yi Guchen and Shimin Fugue also rushed toward the border of the West Island. After about 2 days, they finally got close to the border. The 4 regional islands of Burial Island were separated by huge cracks, which looked like a big rift valley. At this moment, Yi Guchen looked into the distance. At the edge of the big rift valley, a group of densely packed figures stood there, each of them emitting a shocking aura. The 3 figures in the lead had the most powerful aura. 3 of the 7 bully lords are here? This is a bit troublesome, but no problem. Yi Guchen's eyes shot out a cold light. Chapter 1391. A row of figures stood at the edge of the huge rift valley. Every one of them had a powerful aura. There were 3 people in the lead. One of them was a man in a blood-red robe, surrounded by a blood-red aura. The other was a man in a red robe. His whole body seemed to be covered in flames, and his red eyes were like red-hot steel balls. The last person was a young man in a black robe. His long black hair fluttered in the wind, and he wore an iron mask on his face and held a black long sword in his hand. Yi Guchen was not afraid at all. He walked up to them calmly. Shimin Fugue was a little nervous. The 7 bully lords were comparable to the 10 young masters. 3 of them came at once. If it were anyone else, they would be flustered and unable to bear it. Yi Guchen and he were both part of the 10 young masters. However, Shimin Fugue was not really one of the 10 young masters. He had to rely on all kinds of magic weapons to barely make it to the bottom of the 10 young masters. Shui Yunzi was surprised to see that Yi Guchen and Shimin Fugue didn't hide, but took the initiative to walk forward. However, he still sneered and said, "You were the ones who killed the heavenly talents of the Dark World in the West Island, right? Ngui Wuchang of the Rakshasa sect was also killed by you." "That's right," Yiguchen said calmly. He glanced at Shui Yunzi and the others. When his eyes fell on Mo Yi, his pupils constricted slightly, but he soon returned to normal. The corners of his lips curled up into an imperceptible smile. However, Shui Yunzi and the others did not notice his smile. The man in a crimson robe at the side revealed a cold expression as he said, "I know you. You should be one of the 10 great young masters of the South Horizon region, the Sword Young Master, Yi Guchen." Not all the heavenly talents of the Dark World were well informed. The man in the red robe had also heard of Yi Guchen. "Oh, you must be Demon Lu, one of the 7 bully lords. You're good at the fire principle cultivation method," Yi Guchen said with a smile. "With regards to us, the 7 little overlords, your South Horizon region seems to have done a thorough investigation." Lu Gmo sneered. He turned to Mo Yi and said, "Mo Yi, don't you have anything to say about these 2 prey?" The young man named Mo Yi turned his gaze to Yi Guchen. Although he was wearing an iron mask on his face, the 2 round holes in his face revealed a faint hatred. That's right, it was hatred. Feeling this hatred, Yi Guchen's chest heaved up and down as he deeply sighed. There was a complicated look in his eyes. "I have nothing to say." Mo Yi's slightly hoarse and deep voice came out of his mouth. "Ha, that's great. To be able to kill 2 of the top 10 young masters in one go, that's not too bad." Lu Gmo laughed as though victory was already within his grasp. "Attack!" Shui Yunzi made his move. He unleashed the true chi of the 7th level of the Divine Dwelling Realm and gathered it in his palm. It turned into a blood-red palm print and pressed down on Yi Guchen. Lu Gmo also made his move. He cultivated the Great Blazing Sun demonic art. As he activated his cultivation method, he was like a sun, but also like a big furnace, bursting out a blazing aura. Raging true chi rolled around him, turning into fire snakes that rushed towards Yi Guchen. On the contrary, Mo Yi didn't make his move immediately, as though he was observing the situation. On the other side, Yi Guchen brought out the 9 Dragon Thunder Prison Sword and turned to Shimin Fugui. "You just need to protect yourself. Leave the rest to me." "Okay, brother Yi, be careful." Shimin Fugui hurriedly nodded, and then brought out 3 or 4 protective divine weapons, such as shields, armors, shields, and the like. His whole person seemed to be covered with a turtle shell. With this kind of defense, even Shui Yunzi and the others couldn't cause any harm to Shimin Fugui for a while. "Let me deal with this sword, young master." "You deal with Shimin Fugui," said Lu Gmo. His eyes were full of fighting spirit as he looked at Yi Guchen. After all, from what he heard, Yi Guchen's battle strength was considered top-notch among the 10 young masters. Lu Gmo wanted to know if he could defeat the top existence among the 10 young masters. "Okay, leave Shimin Fugui to me." Shui Yunzi's eyes flashed, and he attacked Shimin Fugui. As for Mo Yi, who hadn't made his move, they didn't urge him. After all, everything was under their control now. Yi Guchen and Shimin Fugui were like caged beasts that couldn't escape. Yi Guchen sneered as he looked at Lu Gmo, who was attacking him. If it were any other person, Yi Guchen might have to brace himself. However, this Lu Ji just so happened to cultivate a fire path cultivation technique. Yi Guchen had the Chaos Divine Fire, so he was the least afraid of fire attacks. After all, when the Divine Fire appeared, all fire would submit. In the face of the fire snake, Yi Guchen's sword vibrated, and sword chi gushed out, tearing the fire snake apart. After that, Yi Guchen's sword power did not decrease and continued to pierce through Lu Ji's head. Seeing this, Lu Ji immediately took out a scarlet-red furnace. It was his divine weapon, the Fire King Furnace. The tip of the 9-dragon lightning prison sword touched the Fire King Furnace, producing an ear-piercing sound of metal clashing. Both of them trembled. 9 bursting arrows. Lu Gmo slapped the Fire King Furnace. In an instant, the furnace's mouth opened, and 9 bursting arrows flew out. Each arrow could instantly kill a 5th-layer divine dwelling heaven pride. When the 9 arrows were shot out together, their power superimposed, as if they could collapse a 10,000-foot mountain. Seeing this, Yiguchen directly displayed the 8 extremities transmigration sword art's extremity of water. The contrigram emerged in the void, and Yiguchen's sword tip pierced through it. In the blink of an eye, sword chi surged out like waves. Not only that, but inside Yiguchen's divine dwellings, the Xianyuan heavy water also surged out and blasted out with the sword. Boom! Water and fire clashed, bursting out like crazy waves. Some Xianyuan heavy water directly shot out, falling toward Lu Gmo. Lu Gmo felt a chill in his heart, sensing an extreme danger. He hurriedly used the Fire King Furnace to block. With a few loud clangs, the Fire King Furnace was sent flying back as if it had been smashed by a mountain. Even Lu Gmo was sent flying back, vomiting blood. What is that? Lu Gmo's heart trembled. Yiguchen took advantage of the situation. Sword light flashed, directly aiming for Lu Gmo's head. Earth Core Flame. Lu Gmo directly activated the rare heaven and earth flame in his body. Violent scarlet flames burst out from the Fire King Furnace, bringing with it an explosive aura that could burn the world. Yiguchen, die. Lu Gmo sneered. His flame was a supreme-grade rare heaven and earth flame, and it was his trump card. Seeing this, Yiguchen chuckled. For others, the earth core flame might indeed be a trump card. But for him, it was just a joke. Yiguchen raised his hand, and the 5-colored primal chaos divine flame gushed out. The geocentric blazing fire was suppressed to the extreme in an instant. How is this possible? Lu Gmo exclaimed, his pupils trembling. Chapter 1392. Around Yiguchen, the 5-colored chaos divine flame was surging. The temperature between heaven and earth rose rapidly, and the void was slightly distorted by the flames. When Yiguchen took out the chaotic divine flame, Lu Gmo seemed to be in a daze. His eyes were filled with shock. He cultivated the Great Blazing Sun Magic technique, which was a fire technique. He was extremely sensitive to flames. From the moment Yiguchen took out the chaos divine flame, Lu Ji felt that the flame was extremely terrifying. It was even more terrifying than his supreme grade earth flame, the earth core flame. No, impossible. What kind of flame is that? Could it be a divine flame? Lu Ji's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. He thought of a possibility and couldn't help but blurt out. That was a divine flame. Although a supreme grade earth flame was rare, it could be found if one really wanted to find it. However, it would take a lot of time and effort. But a divine flame was different. A flame of this level was too rare. It was rumored that those divine blacksmiths who forged the immemorial famous swords also used a divine flame. This showed how powerful and rare a divine flame was. But before his eyes, such a rare existence was taken out by a genius from the South Horizon region. Lu Ji couldn't believe his eyes. Don't you think it's naive to show off your flame in front of me? Yiguchen said indifferently. When the divine flame appeared, all flames would submit. With the protection of the chaos divine flame, any fire attribute attack from Lu Ji would be weakened by at least half. Unless his opponent had a divine flame like him. However, it was obviously impossible for Lu Ji to have a divine flame. Having a supreme grade earth flame was already the limit. No, I don't believe it. Lu Ji's face turned serious as he activated his divine dwelling true chi. Within the Fire King Cauldron, raging flames rose into the sky and turned into a huge flaming lotus. The entire flaming lotus contained an explosive and terrifying aura. Great Flaming Lotus! Lu Ji took out his ultimate move. With the support of the Earth Core Flame, he charged towards Yiguchen. Yiguchen's sword aura changed, and the runes of the Li trigram appeared in the void. The tip of his sword pierced through the air, and the explosive flames accompanied by the sword radiance swept across the sky. At the same time, he also used the power of the Chaos Divine Flame. The multicolored primal Chaos Divine Flame wrapped around the sword light and collided with the Fire Lotus. In the blink of an eye, an explosive ring-shaped flame wave spread out in all directions. The Dark World prodigies hurriedly dodged, afraid that they would be caught in the crossfire. Under such a powerful collision, Lu Gmo was sent flying while spewing out blood. His clothes were charred, and his skin was blackened. He was in a sorry state. One of the 7 overlords, Lu Gmo, had suffered a crushing defeat. Is Yi Guqin really that strong? Shui Yunzi, who was fighting with Shimen Fugue, was shocked. Brother Yi is awesome. Shimen Fugue shouted at the top of his lungs, his small eyes filled with excitement. With Yi Guqin around, they might really be able to leave safely today. Damn it. Get him. Lu Gmo's expression was extremely ugly. He had originally wanted to kill Yi Guqin in a one-on-one battle. However, Yi Guqin's strength had far exceeded his expectations. He also did not expect Yi Guqin to have the primal chaos divine flame. This was simply a natural counter to him. Therefore, no matter how unwilling Lu Gmo was, he could only give up on the one-on-one battle and attack from all sides. Hearing this, the geniuses of the dark world swarmed over like bees. Seeing this, Yi Guqin immediately used the unique skill of the sword faction. 108,000 sword souls of the heaven-ripping sword surged out of Yi Guqin's body like a green torrent, sweeping across the sky and the ground. Go! Yi Guqin pointed his sword, and 100,000 sword souls rushed toward the dark world prodigies. The 108,000 sword souls were the most suitable method to attack a group of people. Seeing the torrent of sword souls, the dark world prodigies' expressions changed drastically. They used all kinds of methods to defend themselves. However, after a round of attacks, less than 10% of the dark world prodigies survived. How could this be? Lu Gmo and Shui Yunzi's hearts trembled slightly. Yi Guqin's strength and various methods were far beyond their expectations. Was he also a top 10 young masters? They believed that he was one of the 4 princes. Damn it, our information about Yi Guqin is definitely wrong. His strength is no longer that of the top 10 young masters. He is at least as dangerous as one of the 4 princes, Shui Yunzi thought to himself. The 7 bully lords and the top 10 young masters were all dangerous. The 4 princes and the 4 little magnates were extremely dangerous. On the other hand, Di Haoyan and the War Calamity twin stars were taboo grade. Among the Dark World prodigies, the few who knew about Yi Guqin only regarded him as a dangerous figure. However, Yi Guqin's strength had definitely reached the extremely dangerous level. It was no longer something that the 7 bully lords could handle. Perhaps only the first and second of the 7 bully lords could contend with him. Mo Yi, don't just stand there. Hurry up and do something. Lu Gmo roared. Shui Yunzi and Shimen Fugue were entangled in a fight and could not lend a helping hand. The Dark World prodigies were almost completely slaughtered by the 100,000 sword souls. Therefore, the only one who could help Lu Gmo now was Mo Yi. Mo Yi flipped the black longsword in his hand and finally moved. He stepped into the air and swung his sword horizontally. Great. With Mo Yi here, the 2 of yous can't contend with you? Lu Gmo sneered. Yi Guqin's expression was still calm, as if he was not shaken by the change in the situation in front of him. However, at this moment, Lu Gmo suddenly felt a sharp sword chi locking onto him. He instinctively moved his body to the side, but the sword chi still pierced his chest from behind. Then, the sword chi suddenly shook, and half of Lu Gmo's chest and one of his arms were directly thrown off. Blood splattered everywhere. Ah! Lu Gmo let out an inhuman roar, his eyes bulging. Extreme pain was accompanied by disbelief and shock. He turned around and looked at Mo Yi, who had attacked with his sword. He simply couldn't believe it. This scene left Shui Yunzi dumbfounded. He had not expected this at all. Mo Yi, are you crazy? Shui Yunzi roared. At this time, Yi Guqin could not remain indifferent. He used the divine movement secret technique and turned into a flash of lightning, directly in front of Lu Gmo. The sword chi vibrated and went straight for Lu Gmo's head. Lu Gmo was already injured, and with Mo Yi's sneak attack, he was seriously injured and could not resist at all. In just a short moment, he let out an indignant roar. Lu Gmo, one of the 7 bully lords, had also fallen in the hands of Yi Guqin. Now, you're the only one left. Yi Guchen looked at Shui Yunzi. Mo Yi also raised his sword Qi and pointed it at Shui Yunzi. As for Shimin Fugue, he was at a loss and did not know what to do. Why did the 7 bully lords of the dark world turn against him at the last minute? Shui Yunzi trembled all over, his face ferocious. He could not even defeat Yi Guchen in a one-on-one fight, let alone Mo Yi, who was quite strong. In less than 15 minutes. Shui Yunzi also fell under the siege of Mo Yi and Yi Guchen. In the end, he was killed by Yi Guchen's sword Qi. Now, except for Mo Yi, all the other Dark World heavenly talents present had fallen. Mo Yi looked at Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen also looked at Mo Yi. The two looked at each other, speechless. Then Mo Yi's eyes suddenly burst with hatred. The sword Qi in his hand suddenly shook and stabbed at Yi Guchen's chest. Chapter 1393. The sharp edge of the sword went straight for Yi Guchen's chest, tearing through the air. Yi Guchen's gaze was complicated as he watched Mo Yi's sword. He didn't dodge, but stood in place like a statue. What's going on? Shimin Fugue was completely dumbfounded. Shimin Fugue was already confused by Mo Yi's sudden betrayal and attack on Devil Lu and the others. He guessed that Mo Yi might have some unknown relationship with Yi Guchen. But now, after Lu Jima and Shui Yunzi died, Mo Yi directly attacked Yi Guchen. This left Shimin Fugue completely dumbfounded. But right now, he couldn't care that much. He shouted loudly, "Brother Yi, quickly dodge." Given Yi Guchen's strength, it wasn't impossible for him to kill Mo Yi, let alone dodge the sword. However, Yi Guchen didn't seem to hear him. He stared straight at Mo Yi. There was a faint hatred in Mo Yi's eyes under the iron mask. Time seemed to slow down at this moment. Mo Yi's sword fell on Yi Guchen's chest. The sword was only an inch away from Yi Guchen's chest. The sharp sword aura passed through the sword and left a bloody mark on Yi Guchen's chest. At this moment, the ink-colored long sword stopped. Yi Guchen's eyes were very calm, without a trace of fear in the face of death. He knew that Mo Yi wouldn't kill him. Even if Mo Yi wanted to kill him, Yi Guchen would have no regrets. This was what he should pay. Phew! You scared me to death. Seeing this, Shimin Fugue wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead and let out a long sigh of relief. He still didn't know what the relationship between Yi Guchen and Mo Yi was. But it was clear that there was no real hatred between the two of them. Sensing the oppressive atmosphere, Shimin Fugue tactfully retreated far away. Only Mo Yi and Yi Guchen were left on the scene. The sword in Mo Yi's hand was still pressed against Yi Guchen's chest. For a moment, the two of them were silent. After a long while, Yi Guchen said, "Long time no see." Mo Yi snorted and said, "If we're going to meet in this way, then I'd rather never meet you. I didn't expect you to become one of the 7 bully lords. Looks like you've experienced a lot in this period of time." Yi Guchen's tone carried a hint of emotion. "That's right. I've grown a lot because I still have goals that I haven't achieved yet. What about you? Do you still have the face to face me?" As Mo Yi spoke, he raised his other hand and placed it on the iron mask on his face. Then he slowly took it off. A cold face appeared in front of Yi Guchen. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, and his gaze was profound. Compared to before, his temperament was a little more profound and ferocious. This person was none other than Su Moyan. He was also Su Jianshir's brother. After Di Haotian's servant came to Lotus Village to slaughter the villagers. Yi Guchen wanted Su Jianshir and Su Moyan to go with him to the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest, but Su Moyan refused. He said that he wanted to go to a place where he could become stronger. Now, it seemed that the place that could make Su Moyan stronger was the Dark World. The fighting and killing in the Dark World was far more intense than in the South Horizon region. Only in such a cruel place could Su Moyan grow so quickly. Even a cultivation genius like Yi Guchen sighed with emotion. Su Moyan's strength was indeed much stronger than before. Not just anyone could become one of the 7 bully lords. At this moment, there was a faint trace of hatred in Su Moyan's eyes. He threw down his sword and punched Yi Guchen's face. Yiguchin didn't dodge and allowed Su Moyan to punch him. Yiguchin, before I left, I entrusted my sister to you. What happened to you? How did you take care of her? Su Moyan's eyes were slightly bloodshot as he clenched his fists tightly. It's my fault. I didn't take good care of her. You deserve this punch. Yiguchin sighed. He didn't explain or defend himself. He just silently endured it. Su Moyan was Su Jianshir's brother, and Su Jianshir was now sealed in the Emperor's sword. No matter what the situation was, Yiguchin wouldn't shirk his responsibility. Do you think you can just say that you didn't take good care of her? Do you know how much she sacrificed for you? Su Moyan clenched his fist again and punched Yiguchin. Yiguchin didn't dodge. But this time, the fist stopped in front of Yiguchin and did not land. After a long time, Su Moyan released his fist. Don't you have any explanation? Su Moyan said in a low voice. What's there to explain? There's no need to explain. I won't shirk my responsibility, Yiguchin said firmly. Su Moyan shook his head slightly. I actually understood the situation. At that time, let alone my sister, you couldn't even protect your own life. My sister was willing to sacrifice herself for you, and you also heavily injured Di Haotian for her. Su Moyan let out a deep breath. When he saw Yiguchin, he was indeed angry. After all, he was the one who personally entrusted Su Jianshir to Yiguchin. But in the end, this was the result. However, Su Moyan wasn't an unreasonable person. He also understood the situation at that time. It wasn't that Yiguchin didn't want to protect Su Jianshir, but that he was forced into a corner and almost died. So, how could Su Moyan blame Yiguchin? I definitely won't let that Di Haotian go. I must save my sister. Su Moyan's tone was as cold as frost. Yiguchin said firmly, I've already made a blood oath to kill Di Haotian. On Sky Burial Island, I'll settle things with him. When the time comes, I'll definitely save Su Jianshir. Yiguchin's words eased Su Moyan's expression. At least Su Jianshir hadn't died. They could still save her. Although saving Su Jianshir from Di Haotian's hands was harder than ascending to the heavens, Yiguchin and Su Moyan wouldn't give up. What are you going to do next? Yiguchin asked. I'll continue to be one of the 7 bully lords. I'll also inquire about Di Haotian's whereabouts, said Su Moyan. That's good. You gather information in the Dark World. I'll stay in the South Horizon region. Yiguchin nodded slightly. Now that Su Moyan was in the Dark World, he would be even more useful. Then, Su Moyan and Yiguchin exchanged communication jade slips so that it would be easier to contact each other. Sky Burial Island is the last chance to save my sister. If we miss this chance, it'll be even harder to save her in the Heavenly God Sword sect, Su Moyan said in a low voice. I know that. Yiguchin nodded slightly. Right, there's one more thing I need to tell you. Su Moyan's eyes flashed. What is it? Yiguchin asked. There are people from the Su family among the geniuses of the Dark World, said Su Moyan. Yiguchin raised his eyebrows slightly. There were people from the Su family among the geniuses of the Dark World? That meant that the remaining forces of the Su family had hidden in the Dark World. He thought of Ni Shang, who he had met outside the Sacred Emperor realm in the Sacred City of Fortune. Su Qiqing, whom he had saved at the trade fair, had also left with Ni Shang. Was Ni Shang also from the Su family? Chapter 1394. When he first met Ni Shang in the Sacred City of Fortune, Yiguchin felt that this woman was extremely mysterious and probably had an extraordinary background. Now that he thought about it, there must have been a reason why she protected Su Qiqing back then. And the biggest reason was that Ni Shang was also a member of the Su family. It seems that your Su family's inheritance hasn't been completely severed, Yiguchin said. Su Moyan's tone was cold. Although there are still a few clansmen in the Dark World, it's far from 10 to 20% of the Su family's peak. If we didn't hide in the Dark World, perhaps the last batch of clansmen would have been killed by the Heavenly God Sword sect and other forces. What kind of existence is the Dark World? Yiguchin asked the question that had been on his mind for a long time. As a prodigy of the South Horizon region, when he heard about the Dark World, Most people said that it was a place full of conquest and chaos. That place was the place that opposed the South Horizon region. But now, the Dark World seemed more like a shelter. Those people and forces who couldn't survive in the South Horizon region all entered the Dark World. The Dark World is far from as simple as you think, and it's definitely not a symbol of evil. Although there are indeed many demon sect cultivators, the Dark World wasn't like this in the beginning, Su Moyen said. After all, he had been in the Dark World for so long, and his views were obviously different from before. So that's how it is, Yiguchen muttered to himself. If the Dark World wasn't a completely evil existence, then what was the reason for the South Horizon region to fight with it? Yiguchen vaguely felt that there was a great secret behind it. If you really want to know, I suggest you go to the Dark World in the future to experience it for yourself, Su Moyen said. We'll talk about this later. Yiguchen shook his head slightly. All right, I'll take my leave first, Su Moyen said. Take care. As for Su Jianshi, Yiguchen wanted to say something, but Su Moyen waved his hand and interrupted him. You don't have to say anything. I just hope that my little sister can stand in front of me in one piece, Su Moyen said. Definitely, Yiguchen said. Su Moyen took a deep look at Yiguchen, then left. After Su Moyen left, Shimonfugue also walked over. You should know what you can say and what you can't say, right? Yiguchen said calmly. Of course, I only saw you kill Shui Yunzi and Lu Gmo. I didn't see anything else. Shimonfugue quickly nodded. The South Horizon region and the Dark World had always been like fire and water. If news of Yiguchen's relationship with the Heavens Chosen of the Dark World got out, it would bring a lot of trouble to Yiguchen. Let's go straight to the South Island, Yiguchen said. This time he had gained a lot. He had gained a total of 8,000 points. In the entire South Horizon region, he was definitely one of the top existences. Then, Yiguchen led Shimonfugue across the border to the South Island. On the other side, Sky Burial Island, West Island. A white-haired figure with a devilishly handsome face was standing in front of a pile of corpses. Opposite him, the last remaining heavenly talent from the Dark World was covered in blood. His face was filled with unprecedented fear and arrogance. Are you really a genius of the South Horizon region? Why are you even more ruthless than the geniuses of our Dark World? This elite of the 13 gangsters was scared out of his wits by this white-haired figure in front of him. The geniuses of the Dark World were famous for their ruthlessness and ruthlessness. Their combat experience was much richer than the geniuses of the South Horizon region. However, in the face of this white-haired Azura, even as one of the 13 gangsters, he was scared out of his wits. Die! This figure was naturally Doguchuma. His tone was cold as he activated the soul-devouring demon eye. In an instant, the Dark World's prodigy's head exploded. Red and white matter splattered everywhere. Doguchiomo took out the crystal. There were already more than 6,000 points on it. Although it was slightly weaker than Yiguchen's, it was still considered one of the top. I didn't expect to be teleported to a place like the West Island, but it's good too, Doguchioma murmured. When he was teleported, he was separated from Princess Luoho and was stranded in the West Island alone. The West Island was also a territory controlled by the Dark World. If it were other heavenly talents from the South Horizon region, they might be extremely terrified. However, it couldn't be better for Doguchioma. Not only could he grow quickly through killing, but he could also get rich points as a reward. Let's find the next prey, Doguchioma muttered to himself and left using a secret technique. About half a day after Doguchioma left, two figures landed on the ground. One of them was a woman in blood-colored armor. She had a charming face and snow-white skin. She had a head of long red hair that burned like a raging flame. Her temperament was somewhat similar to Princess Luoho's. She carried a blood-colored long axe on her back that didn't match her body size. It was stained with blood. Beside her stood a handsome young man with a folding fan in his hand. When the two of them saw the tragic scene in front of them, their faces froze. Such ruthlessness! She's not inferior to our Dark World's heavenly talents, the young man with the folding fan said with a frown. However, when the woman in blood-colored armor glanced around, her face changed slightly. This is Azura Vital Chi? The woman's tone was full of shock. What? Azura Vital Chi? Is this the Azura Palace's Azura Vital Chi? The man with the folding fan was also surprised. The Azura Palace was a top force in the Dark World. It was on par with the Rakshasa sect and the Yellow Spring sect. The Azura Palace's most prominent characteristic was their Azura Vital Chi. This special Vital Chi could only be possessed by the Azura Palace's martial artists. The woman with long red hair and blood-colored armor was the Azura Palace's heavenly talent, Nuo Luo. At the same time, she was also one of the 7 bully lords. She was ranked 3rd among the 7 bully lords. She was stronger than Qin Shang, Shui Yunzi, Lu Jima, and the others. As for the young man with the folding fan, he came from another top force in the Dark World, the Nightless City. His name was Song Gu. He was ranked 4th among the 7 bully lords. That's right. This is Azura Vital Chi. But who is it? Nuo Luo asked doubtfully. Song Gu hesitated for a moment, then said, "Could it be the one from the Azura Palace?" He was referring to the Azura Palace's strongest heavenly talent. He was also one of the twin stars of war and calamity, Zhan Xing. Absolutely impossible. That person has no reason to attack these people. Moreover, they would never provoke that person. When Nuo Luo mentioned Zhan Xing, her beautiful face was filled with fanaticism and worship. As the Azura Palace's strongest heavenly talent and one of the twin stars of war and calamity, Zhan Xing. His strength was already at the peak of the younger generation in the Dark World. How could such a person attack these small fries? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.